Chapter 751, The Last Time. Take me for a ride. Zhang Han was pale, but his condition made others feel that he was quite good. Zhang Guanyu and Dong Chen weren't in too much of a hurry, but before Zhang Han could stand in front of them, he said something as his body shook slightly. His breath was uncontrollable and extremely fluttering. The expressions on their faces changed slightly. Flashing to Zhang Han's side, they lifted him and left quickly. At the same time, within the main mount at the front, there were dozens of people standing on the massive platform at the top of the mountain. Most of them had somewhat confused expressions on their faces. We've added another 23 divine objects. How come we still haven't drawn out the lightning? A total of 39 divine objects have been used, not to mention the holy objects. How come such a large number of divine objects haven't worked at all? It's a bottomless pit. If I put more in, the Wind Snow School's reserves won't be enough. Yes, a confrontation with the Heavenly Knights sect is imminent. All these resources can be used to refine hundreds of pellets, which could become the fundamentals of a long-lasting war. With all due respect, this broken axe has absorbed too many resources. Is it worth it? If there's a problem in the battle, First Elder Zhan, the responsibility you have to shoulder will be too massive. Some people among the crowd were even questioning them, but most of the words came from the two old men next to the First Elder. Their words made Zhan's face turn ugly. He retorted, "How would I know it would consume so many resources? And as you saw just now, that 100 feet thunderbolt is quite powerful. It must be evolving to become the attribute thunder, and if it succeeds, then the battle axe would definitely be elevated to the 6th rank. If so, it would be a piece of cake to fight Dong Chen, wouldn't it? And starting from the moment the resources were sent here, First Elder has also been watching it. I would not pocket any of them. It is for the greater good that I've made such a decision. Now to put it bluntly, if I terminate it, the rank of my battle axe will not rise but fall. Based on my situation and the fact that the attribute thunder has appeared, I think it is necessary for us to persist. Once the spiritual treasure has risen to the 6th rank, we can certainly extinguish the Heavenly Knights sect and endless resources will be available. I believe that I will bring more revenue and benefits to the sect. It is even possible for us to level the world." The second and third elders were standing next to the First Elder, who were in high positions and were powerhouses on their own right. They looked dubious and dissatisfied, and for those behind them, they also felt that the price was too high. The majority of items brought over this time were of the poisonous kind, which were of little use. It indicated that the clan was impatient. After seeing that the consumption was too much, they could only shoulder it. At this time, Zhan didn't want to give up. He could only fight for it. The good thing was that the First Elder always looked calm. He looked up at the rolling clouds and was silent for a long time. He was Zhan's last hope, and if he consented, this matter could still be accomplished. At the same time, Zhan felt rather bitter in secret. He didn't expect that the refining method he had obtained would demand so many resources. Zhan thought, "It's so damn strange. According to the secret method, 25 ranks would have been enough, and now it's almost 40. What's going on?" He looked up at the dark clouds in the sky, looking dazed. Could it be that the 5th ranks referred to other things? Why is it absorbing resources so fiercely? It's too exaggerated. Eventually, he looked at the First Elder, so did the others. They gradually converged. The First Elder suddenly sighed and said, "We have made small progress in refining attribute thunder. If we discard it, it would be something to regret. Let's go back and prepare a new batch of resources. It feels like it should almost be there." As soon as he spoke, the second elder and the third elder beside him also nodded helplessly. They could only make such a decision. They were going to start in the next few days and didn't want to delay any longer. They had been kept in the dark on and on, and felt tired. Zhang Han also sensed their attitude. After he returned to the Heavenly Knights sect, he prepared to refine the extra 700 thunderclouds without stopping. He was also rather worried that the refinement would take too long and he wouldn't make it to the Wind Snow School in time. But that was okay. "Son, let's go. Dad will take you to a nice place," Zhang Wenyu said as he smiled mysteriously. He took Zhang Han up the mountain. Near the top, there was a place that looked like a canyon, in which fog lingered. "Hot springs?" Zhang Han narrowed his eyes slightly. "That's right. It is actually called Heaven Lake. The water here can provide pure energy, which has been nurtured and cultivated by 18 divine objects for many years. This is a place where you can perfectly make a breakthrough to the divine realm, and it is also a very important place in the Heavenly Knights sect." Heading inwards, Zhang Han saw that there was a wooden dwelling that resembled a private clubhouse. It was classical and yet somewhat luxurious. The periphery here is used when you are breaking through to the divine realm, which will require fewer crystals. The world lit trades with lower quality crystals and there are few medium quality ones. Crystals can help people practice, but the effect here is better. You need to consume divine objects to maintain it. Usually, disciples will come here when they make a breakthrough. Are crystals used to trade here? Zhang Han was also a bit surprised. It seemed that the world lit had quite a few crystals in reserve and could be said to have shaped a miniature version of an immortal cultivation world, except for its relatively low strength. Saint Warrior Planet was still somewhat powerful. Crystals are not rare in the world lit. It's also a bit strange that when it comes to the structure of this world, relics will show up in the main continent, which we all have to fight for. Moreover, they are also places for disciples to practice. But every worldlet, even the smallest one in Singapore, has quite a few crystals. Do you know why? Zhang Wenyu slowly led the way while explaining. It's because of the ancient mine. The ancient mine area is very large, and some people suspect that it implicates all the worldlets connected to this world. Every worldlet has an entrance to the ancient mine, except for the mundane world. So, more and more people are practicing in the worldlets and going to the relics in the mundane world to make their way there. A worldlet is like a hub. Along the way, Zhang Guanyu chatted about some matters related to the worldlet. Soon, they reached the innermost area, where there was a palace with an isolated room. The energy here is the purest. Go ahead. Zhang Guanyu patted Zhang Han's shoulder. Okay. Zhang Han nodded. Under the watchful eyes of the two protectors, Zhang Han walked into one of the houses. Zhang Wenyu also took out 2 types of divine objects. Add something to his room. Zhang Wenyu handed it to one of the guardians. Then the guardian went to the door of the room and stepped in front of it. A grid appeared. After that, he placed the divine objects on the grid, which started to transform it into energy. The room was plain and monotonous. Aside from some formation patterns, there was only one cushion located at the center of the room. Sitting on it, Zhang Han felt that the formation had been activated. A stream of pure energy permeated the entire house. Zhang Han slightly sensed it. He smiled faintly and began to focus on refining the 700 clouds, whose majority was made up of poisonous things. After practicing there for 3 hours in the afternoon, Zhang Han was in a better state. Fearing that Meng would have to wait, he terminated the refinement. It wasn't until he finished coaxing Meng to sleep, and chatted quietly with Xian for a while in the evening, that he went to the Heaven Lake area again. The next day, it dawned brightly. Zhang Han suddenly opened his eyes. The look he had was so deep that thunder seemed to be flickering in his eyes. Puff. Zhang Han let out a breath of turbid air. It seemed that the training had partially improved Zhang Han's physique. It's time to go to the Wind Snow School to check the situation. There are still more than 60 crystals left, which should be enough. Zhang Han chanted slightly. He went out again after having breakfast with his wife and daughter in the morning. Each time, it was always Zhang Guanyu and Dong Chen who would accompany him. This time, he was quicker, and his counterpart wasn't ready yet. They waited for another 3 days. It was 9 o'clock in the morning. Zhang Han entered the main mountain of the Wind Snow School and returned half an hour later with strong breathing. 9890. The increase is getting slower. After one failure, all the people in the Wind Snow School were completely anxious. Zhang Han paid another visit the next day. The first elder seemed to have prepared more energy. He even took out 3 high-end divine objects of his own. Crack! Thunder with 1,000 feet in length flashed through the air, and the power contained within it was palpable. Is it still not ready yet? Zhan San's body shook, his face looked somewhat pale. So far, more than 60 divine objects had been used as well as countless holy objects. Taking the Wind Snow School as an example, the divine objects they possessed were only close to 100, which they had accumulated over the years. For some medium-sized sects, they only had 30 to 50 divine objects in total. With such a calculation, they had consumed too many divine objects. Even if we successfully refine a treasure, will this battle axe still belong only to me? Zhan San was frightened in secret. Even the first elder looked somewhat dull. What the heck is this? The second and third elders were nearly spitting blood in anger. The protectors were also confused. Are we going to fork out all the clan has for a battle axe? Is it worth it? There were many people who thought it was worth it. The consumption is too massive, and the treasures refined out of it are bound to be extraordinary as well. Nonsense. If the clan is drained, with just one battle axe, what is the point? So the argument rang again. First elder touched his forehead with his right hand, feeling tired and conflicted. Only after a moment did he slowly say, "It's true that the consumption is too great. But what's done is done. Let's prepare more for the last time. If it works, that's it. If not, let's end it." He was also somewhat unable to handle it. There were many people in the Wind Snow School who would consume a lot as well. If the consumption went on endlessly, the clan's supply would be in trouble. Although the 6th rank looked attractive, he believed that after the head of the sect went to the Cultivation World of Immortals and returned, the 6th rank might not be so high up. At this moment, Zhang Han's face became even paler after he left the Wind Snow School and revealed his form. Zhang Wangyu asked nervously, "How was it?" "Next time will be the last time," Zhang Han responded and let Zhang Wangyu take him out of the Wind Snow School. With 9,999 thunders, Zhang Han felt like his head was going to split up. There was one more thunder to go. Zhang Han only had to endure it for a while, and all of it would pass. After returning to the sect, Zhang Han once again went to the Heaven Lake area. In order to refine the newborn clouds, he consumed no less. The Heavenly Knights sect had supported him with a total of 13 divine objects. This allowed Zhang Han to refine the clouds at a rapid pace, and the spiritual energy of his meridians continued to increase. The slightest mistake would bring about a breakthrough. Zhang Han had to suppress it rather bitterly. He was even leaking some of his breath sometimes when he walked. It made Chen Qingqing smile repeatedly after seeing him like this. Brother Han is about to make a breakthrough. This was a good thing. Finally, 2 more days passed. More than 50 people had gathered at the gate of the Heavenly Knights sect. They were the Grand Elder Dongchen, Zhang Wangyu, the First Elder, the Third Elder, and several others. Many protectors were there as well. All of them looked fierce. The First Elder's group was full of evil spirits. Someone asked, "Are we going to fight against the Wind Snow School?" They didn't know what they were going to do on this trip yet, but since the Grand Elder had called them over, apparently, they were going to do something huge. However, nobody expected that. The answer showed the opposite. Dong Chen stiffened his face and was just about to reply. Then, Zhang Han's voice came from not far away. "Why are there so many people here?" Chapter 752, Zhang Han was exposed. The people at the front were equal to more than 70% of the combat power of the Heavenly Knights sect. They were very strong, but what was the point? If they really fought, the Wind Snow School had nearly 20 people who had reached the Heaven Realm. If the Wind Snow School could overwhelm them in numbers, so could they in strength. Although they could escape, they would suffer heavy casualties. Of course, this would only happen in a situation where a deadly battle took place. This time, As Dong Chen was about to give an explanation, Zhang Han waved his hand and cut him off in a very certain tone. These people don't need to go there, it's useless. Zhang Han didn't say further, knowing that Dong Chen was a very smart person. Dong Chen raised his eyebrows slightly, and after 2 seconds of silence, he nodded amidst many strange gazes. All right, everyone, you should go back. Young master, let's go. After saying that, Dong Chen and Zhang Wenyu set off and flew out of the Heavenly Knights sect with Zhang Han following close by, leaving behind a stunned crowd. What's going on? Where are they going? They acted as if it was a big deal previously and it seemed that they were going to fight. But what is this development now? Could it be that they are going to the Wind Snow School? Or to the ancient mine? The Beast Mountain? It could be the Beast Mountain. I've heard that the Command Beast Peak has been very busy lately, given all the missing spirit beasts. This remark made the Command Beast Peak host straighten up his face, and he snorted. The spirit beasts were not lost, okay? Bullshit. With a rebuttal, he moved and slipped away. The third elder looked at them a few times and waved his hand. Everyone should disperse. And when everyone left, there were 2 people beside him, the first and the 6th elders. According to your opinion, what are they doing? The first elder frowned and continued, it's also really strange. When I saw the evil spirits in the Grand Elder's eyes, I thought that they were really going to start some kind of massive battle, but now it doesn't seem like that. It should be something petty. The 6th elder was not concerned at all. He said, the young master's son has been practicing in the Heaven Lake recently. I guess the Grand Elder and the others are probably going to the ancient mine. After all, the constant high-intensity practice surely has consumed him a lot. The third elder shook his head and said, forget it, since they don't need to bring anyone with them, it means they are confident. The Grand Elder, that old bastard, he hasn't suffered much until now. The third elder's words made the 2 people beside him burst out laughing. What he had said was true. Dong Chen, the Grand Elder of the Heavenly Knights sect, whose name was well known in every corner of the earth, was not only strong but also extremely quick-witted. There were quite a few people who had been trapped by him, some of whom were even grateful to him without ever noticing it. If Dong Chen was confident, they shouldn't be in great danger. Those people had similar thoughts, but they weren't certain about the fact that not even Dong Chen had any clues in secret this time. Halfway along their flight, Dong Chen looked at Zhang Han and said, you said that this was the last time, so in order to prevent any unforeseen circumstances, I planned to bring someone over so that I can support you. Zhang Han responded, there's no need to support me, even if they catch me, I still have a way to escape. Bringing more people with us will become a burden. Boo, burden? Zhang Wenyu was stunned. Even Dong Chen was startled and somewhat confused, wondering how Zhang Han would be so confident. Dong Chen thought, you're a grandmaster, okay? Dong Chen felt that he needed to remind Zhang Han of the fact that, although he was exceptionally talented, it didn't mean that he had overwhelming strength. But before Dong Chen could speak, the calm-looking Zhang Han added, if it does happen, you guys should leave me alone. It'll be hard for them to catch me, but they will probably have ways to catch you. Nonsense. Dong Chen furrowed his eyebrows and said, you're a small grandmaster, how come you can run under the nose of someone who is at Heaven Peak stage? Zhang Han slightly shook his head. Boom. In the next moment, a sudden explosion was heard. According to Dong Chen's and Zhang Wenyu's field of view, Zhang Han suddenly transformed his figure into 8, which ran in 8 directions at a fast pace. He broke the sound barrier with a split-second's speed, creating a huge sound and a wave of air. Huh? Dong Chen narrowed his gaze and spread his spiritual sense, only to find that all the 8 figures were somewhat erratic. Whoosh. Suddenly, a breath emerged from above. The 2 of them looked up and found that Zhang Han was slowly falling down from high in the sky. Well, Dong Chen's expression changed slightly. Originally, he thought that Zhang Han's figure had been hidden among the 8 silhouettes, but he never thought that he would appear above them. Good body movement. Seeing that Zhang Han returned calmly, Dong Chen couldn't help but praise him. If you can fool me, you can fool the Wind Snow School as well, but that's not enough. It only buys you 3 seconds. That was just a superficial skill. Zhang Han shook his head and stopped displaying his moves to him. His indifferent attitude, however, left Dong Chen and Zhang Guangyu a bit surprised. How does Zhang Han know so much? Zhang Guangyu asked uncertainly. Are you sure it's okay? Facing his father, Zhang Han put on a confident smile and looked in the direction of the Wind Snow School in the distance before him as he said, it's just a Wind Snow School, and it's up to me whether I go or stay. Zhang Han had been to many places that were more dangerous than the Wind Snow School. The challenge this time was nothing. Of course, in Zhang Han's opinion, he probably would end up being kicked in the A. Even so, he had no choice. He had to do something to make Dong Chen and Zhang Guangyu be at ease. Of course, there lay some dangers. If he was really trapped in the main mount of the Wind Snow School, he would definitely fall, but the heaven-earth formation of the main mount was not amazing enough, which reduced the risk level by a great margin. I'm relieved then. Zhang Guangyu exhaled a breath and shook his head slightly as he sighed. The Wind Snow School, which we haven't taken over for decades, is now like a hotel. It is only so for you, which makes me feel a little weird. Zhang Guangyu felt frustrated. He couldn't do anything about the Wind Snow School at all. But his son could enter it as if he were in the middle of nowhere. Those words also made Dong Chen's mouth tremble. Although he wanted to say something, he didn't say anything in the end. Feeling exhausted, he thought, this kid's strength is obviously crappy. How could he do something so ungodly? It is also odd. As for the spirit beasts he raised, he is somewhat shameless. He raised 2 spirit beasts a day previously. How come he can raise 3 per day recently? When he thought about this matter, he was furious. Recently, people from the Command Beast Peak had run away as soon as they saw him. As for the reason, he knew it only too well, and there were even people who whispered about it, giving him the nickname Big Devil. He thought, how come I, the ever-righteous Dong Chen, ended up with this notoriety? You, Humphrey. As Dong Chen wanted to preach to Zhang Han about something, he held himself back. In his heart, he was murmuring, calm down, that's a curse rock. Moreover, there is King Kong. Puff. His actions left Zhang Han a bit baffled. He thought, what is this old guy thinking about? Zhang Han ignored him. Then he traveled for 3 hours and arrived at the old place once again. I'm leaving. As Zhang Han said, he waved his right hand. Then the cards, along with crystals and other things, quickly formed a phalanx to hide his scent and figure. It was very much the same procedure he used the other time, and in 20 minutes, Zhang Han came out. He still had to wait for about 2 hours this time. It was impossible for him to stay inside while consuming crystals and waiting for them to refine the treasures. Dong Chen and Zhang Guangyu were also used to it and would just wait. As they were waiting, so was everyone inside, and they were even more nervous and apprehensive. Throughout the whole process, nearly 70 divine objects had been consumed. Their heritage amassed over the decades had been gravely depleted. We must succeed. The second elder was quite distressed for his divine objects. Looking at the dark clouds rolling above him, he gritted his teeth and said, if we don't succeed, Zhan-san, you will pay the price. Second elder, you've gone too far, haven't you? Zhan-san immediately jumped out as he retorted, I, Zhan-san, have brought merits to the sect. Moreover, at least I deserve credit for my efforts. I've single-handedly fought against the Heavenly Knights sect in the Kungzu world for more than 5 years and experienced hundreds of battles of all sizes. If it were anyone else, they might not have persevered, but the way I found out by myself could elevate the rank of my battle axe. In that case, how much benefit would I bring? Even if we don't talk about the benefits, won't we have the capital to wipe out the Heavenly Knights sect then? I'm also bleeding for the sect and standing at the forefront of the battlefield in the Kungzu world, while you, second elder, have been on the loose in the main sect for over a decade, right? How many battles have you been in over the years, and on what grounds are you here to judge me? If everyone who fights in the front line like me has to end up like this, then I have nothing else to say. The second elder's face changed dramatically as he heard what Zhang Han had said. He was trembling with anger, looking majestic as if he would take the initiative to attack. At this time, Zhang Han calmed down again and said, yes, too many resources were consumed this time, but the treasures are of the 6th rank anyway. It would surely involve a little risk and investment. What's more, the first elder was the main contributor of all these. So, if you have any doubts, let's ask the first elder to be the judge. The second elder laughed angrily and said in a cold voice, he, you become tough, right? But before he finished speaking, the first elder knitted his eyebrows as he coldly reprimanded, enough. If you're angry, vent your anger on the Heavenly Knights sect. With things having come to this point, there is no turning back. We can only succeed today, never should we fail. After the first elder finished speaking, the others kept silent, but some of them were still reluctant, throwing meaningful looks at Zhang Han instead. If they failed, Zhang Han would definitely have to bear the price. So many treasures had been wasted because of him. Whatever the reason was, what was gone was gone. In that case, Zhang Han might not lose his life, but he probably would have to be sent to dig in the ancient mine for decades. But the crowd present didn't want to fail either. Many of them murmured, I hope we can succeed in one go. If they succeeded, they would be able to enjoy greater benefits and annihilate the Heavenly Knights sect. Moreover, it would indicate that they were capable of transcending the world. In that case, would it still be far for them to dominate the martial arts world? We're almost there. After an hour or so, the first elder looked at the tumbling clouds, and calmly said, accelerate the refining. Clatter. A line of more than 20 Earth success martial artists on the backside was refining various kinds of treasures with all their might. An astonishing amount of energy gathered within the formation and was slowly taking shape. We will succeed, definitely. Zhang Han was getting nervous at this time. From what others could figure out, he surely knew it as well. He dared not think further. If they failed, he would surely end up in a tough spot. Once he succeeded, with a 6th rank spiritual treasure, he would have the right to speak. The so-called second and third elders would both become bullshit, while the first elder, who mastered the essence, blood and soul of others, would still be quite authoritative. In the midst of several thousands of nervous gazes, energy slowly gathered, and the formation suddenly brightened and blossomed. Clatter. A strong whirlwind swirled around the formation, creating a storm of energy that rose into the dark clouds and merged with the formation. All of a sudden, various marks shone brightly in the dark clouds. The pounding energy was like the ocean, causing the marks to emit a pale glow and making them look like something ancient. This time, the breath was going to surpass all of the previous ones. Boom. Suddenly, a large energy thunderstorm flashed through the dark clouds. The thunder seemed to contain supreme power. But the first elder was furrowing his brows as he thought, what is going on? Why is it like this again? Where's the attribute thunder from last time? This is definitely not the attribute thunder. He was a bit puzzled and furious. Every time, an attribute thunder would pop up only at the end. The situation this time was the same as before. Could it be that they would still fail this time? Under the many gazes, the thunder continued to flicker. Boom, boom. Hundreds of thunderbolts continued to rotate and matched the mark, forming a vortex. Zhang Han roared fiercely and operated the secret method, invoke the thunder. Crack. A thunderbolt fell from the sky. The thunder drawing finally succeeded. Zhang Han was trembling, feeling a little excited. He almost burst into tears. He had failed many times. Every time the thunder was drawn, the thunder would seem like a fart. It had finally been drawn. which was a good start. Anyway, even if it was of the quasi-sixth rank, he could somewhat explain it to the others. But the thing that happened next was totally out of everyone's expectations. Crack! As the thunder fell halfway down, for a moment, an attribute thunder lit up at the center of the various thunder vortexes in the dark clouds. Buzz! The thunder that had fallen down suddenly made a turn and went back. Zhang Han was dumbfounded as he thought, what the heck? I drew the thunder, why is it going back? Many of others were also dumbfounded, wondering what had happened. Zhang Han murmured uncertainly, could it be that the thunder has not finished its metamorphosis? It's still morphing, said the first elder as he narrowed his eyes. Yes, the thunder is still metamorphosing. In the air, Zhang Han was suffering as he had absorbed thunderclouds one after another. I didn't expect that it would be so difficult to put up with this last thundercloud. A riot. This is not a good omen. Above Zhang Han's soul sense thunder continued to flicker and split, making him feel a bit dizzy, and he couldn't suppress it at all. It was as if this last thundercloud represented the ultimate, which didn't allow him to combine them easily, and Zhang Han was a bit baffled by all of this. In the past, the cumulus clouds were not like this either. Clatter. Buzzing sounds resounded in his head again. It's fortunate that there are quite a few thunderbolts this time and the energy is pure, otherwise, I may not be successful. Zhang Han's eyes shone brightly, he sped up as he absorbed the power of thunder. Gradually, his energy became denser. The riotous wood thunder was beyond his control. Without stepping into innateness, he couldn't own it completely. Thus, after maintaining this for 5 minutes, Zhang Han was already in a somewhat hazy state. Although his years of habit had enabled him to maintain the formation beside him, the situation outside was somewhat different from what he had expected. Boom! The thunder continued to flicker and the number of them decreased drastically. There are 50 more. 20. 7. 3. No more? Where's the thunder? Once again, the crowd was at a loss. Wait. Suddenly a creepy voice rang out. The dark clouds are dissipating. Oh God. Did we fail? Boom. The words were like a thunderbolt from the clear sky that hit everyone straight in the heart. SHT, what's going on? Many people panicked. Although there had been a fight before, it didn't mean they didn't care. Nearly 70 types of divine objects had been consumed, which were more than those of many sects combined. Anybody would surely feel bad if nothing was achieved in the end. Gulp. Wisps of cold sweat flowed from Zhang Han's head, as he looked at the dark clouds that were dissipating faster and faster. His cold sweat ran through his entire body, and his clothes were about to get soaked. He also noticed out of the corner of his eye that the looks on the faces of the second and third elders had turned completely ugly. Even the first elder looked gloomy. Clatter, clatter, clatter. A strong wind seemed to be blowing the clouds away and sunlight illuminated the platform, but everyone felt that their hearts became colder and colder. Boom. Suddenly, a thunderclap sounded out of nowhere, then, a figure seemed to have suddenly been revealed, later dissipating into the void. Huh? Zhang Han was stunned. What was that? Just as the crowd was in awe, a sudden roar rang out from the first elder's mouth. Who is it? He waved his right hand, forming 1,000 blades in a moment and cutting down the air. Thump. Zhang Han in the air leaked out a bitter laughter. Zhang Han thought, the wood thunder is so amazing. After 10,000 thunderclouds formed the thunder, its energy blasted Zhang Han, making him almost go insane, and he couldn't control the formation for a moment, revealing his figure for a moment. This was bad. I'm going to get exposed. Zhang Han suppressed the thunderclouds that were about to converge with a force and looked at the fast incoming blade. He knew that he couldn't withstand such attack, but moving too fast would also send out fluctuations in the formation. He could only go for it. Zhang Han lifted his right hand, and the formation was suddenly dissipated. His body was revealed. A person suddenly appeared in the air, making the many heavyweights on the platform feel a bit shocked. Very good, Zhang Han praised. He thought, it'll be good for them to help me break through the 10,000 thunderclouds. What he had said was indeed a sarcastic remark. Swish. Suddenly, the air was covered with more than 40 replicas of Zhang Han, which were fleeing in different directions. At this moment, the crowd finally came to their senses and realized what had happened. A lot of energy was stolen from us. Puff. First Elder staggered, and he, who had always remained calm, spat a mouthful of blood in anger. Even the blades in the air dissipated in a moment. It was just a move he was trying out, and he had also suspected that he was mistaken, but he didn't expect that someone would really be there. Someone was indeed there. Someone had stolen the Wind Snow School's energy. Ah! The First Elder roared in anger, "Capture him for me." The First Elder was ordering them to capture him rather than kill him. Feeling furious, the First Elder wanted to tear him alive, but he surely wouldn't kill him easily. How could he? He surely would peel off his veins and skin first. Boom! Hearing the First Elder's words, the crowd was not hesitant at all. Their eyes were red as if their family members had been harmed. Then they rushed out. More than a dozen Heaven Success heavyweights were so furious that each of them waved their hands and shattered a few shadow replicas. But they didn't expect that shattering one would give birth to two. It's just a trifling skill. The First Elder shouted furiously, and a massive amount of spiritual sense energy formed the hurricane mystery, covering the surrounding space. Bang! Suddenly, in the void that was 100 meters away on the right, a pillar of blood was spat out. Swish. In an instant, dozens of angry and icy gazes were swept over. A figure was revealed. It fled extremely quickly to the lower half of the mountain. The main mount of the Wind Snow School was like two cones, with one standing straight and the other one turned upside down. They were on a smaller cone-shaped mountain, which was upside down. Witnessing such a scene, many people were shocked and angry. Among the figure just then, there was no main body. Someone roared, "He has a way of concealing his body's breath. Go. You can't escape." The First Elder took to the battle by himself, and with a flash of his figure, he quickly arrived 10 meters behind Zhang Han and slapped his palm. Bang! The figure turned into a mist of blood and dissipated into the world. Is he so weak? The crowd was stunned for a fraction of a second. In the next moment, a massive amount of soul sense covered all the space. A figure appeared 200 meters below. Scatter, grab him. The First Elder was so furious that he went pale. After receiving his order, the crowd suddenly dispersed, and their soul sense and spiritual forces were being used to the maximum, covering downward across the road in a condescending manner. The figure flew so fast that Zhang Han was left behind at the back of the crowd, looking dazed and confused at this time. Zhang Han thought, it's not the problem of the formation. It's the energy that's been stolen. How did this happen? How is that possible? Chapter 753, Take him down. Look what you've done. The Second Elder hatred for Zhang Han was so great that he glared fiercely at him. Then he moved his body and covered the entire air with many strong men from the Wind Snow School as they pressed downwards. Hiss. Zhang Han trembled and fear was revealed by his eyes. It's over. Am I ruined? What to do? Could it be that I have to escape? With a flash of madness in his eyes, he waved his right hand and withdrew the war axe floating in the air. Zhang Han felt that something was seriously wrong. The First Elder and the others were shocked and angry. Even if they killed the man below, it would not quell their anger at all. Should I escape? Zhang Han was incredibly confused, and he was struggling. Dong, dong. He could clearly hear the sound of his heartbeat. Where should I escape to? No, I can't escape. If I escape, I would end up having a deadly feud with them. And unless I go down the ancient mine and don't come out or hide in a relic, they could easily find me. With a decision made, his face looked paler. He knew that he was going to suffer a big blow this time. What could he do then? Kill. Zhang Han roared, and his voice rang through the Wind Snow School. The Heaven-Earth formation continued to swirl and go wild. The crowd was also quite confused. How did he get in here, and how did he manage to quietly absorb that much energy? Who is he? Where does he come from? Could it be that some power is targeting the Wind Snow School? Confusion lingered in the minds of the crowd. As for who he is, we'll know when we catch him. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Many of them kept striking and attacking, turning the whole world upside down. But, however they tried to hit him, they just kept missing the mark. That guy was as slippery as a loach. But in front of absolute strength, however proficient his body skills were, he was somewhat inferior. Puff. Zhang Han was shocked by the aftermath of the first elder's attack, and he was mentally disoriented. The spiritual force within him was raging and his body was bloodstained. Zhang Han sped up again. I did run into someone tough. Zhang Han laughed bitterly to himself. At the moment, an air breakout would definitely fail. Those people had blocked off the surrounding area tightly, and the only breakthrough lay in the ground. Kill. Zhan San was fast. Holding a battle axe, he was cutting down across the sky. A fierce edge seemed to be cutting through space, making one's scalp go numb, and Zhang Han also felt an intense crisis. Cupping his right hand, he transformed his body into 100 streaks, fleeing downward in madness. But there were too many attacks aiming for him. It was somewhat difficult for him to tread over this distance, which was not far away, and at the very least, the injuries on his body were getting worse. The movement in the air made the disciples of the Wind Snow School in the lower half of the mountain feel confused. Many of them walked out of their rooms and looked up into the air, looking confused. What's going on? It seems to be a fight. How could it happen in the main mount? The first elder and the others are up there. The one who just shouted kill should be Sky Dragon, right? Hiss. Could it be that he's fighting with the first elder and the others? Under the horrified gazes of the disciples, a figure appeared in the air, marching frantically downwards. Who is that? FCK, the first elder and the others are going after that man. Let's go and intercept him. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Many disciples reacted quickly and moved to meet Zhang Han straightforwardly. As the saying goes, a slight move in one part may affect the situation as a whole. Dozens of disciples formed a blockade on the lower side, most of whom were in the divine realm, and only a handful of them were grandmasters. But those few grandmasters were the chance for Zhang Han to make a breakthrough. Soul-suppressing skill. Zhang Han's eyes shone brilliantly, and a huge amount of soul sense formed into a secret method. In an instant, it made the disciples on the lower side mentally tremble, and they were dumbfounded for a second. The situation was changing rapidly, and this second could make a strong man do many things, including Zhang Han. He slammed hard with his right hand. Puff, puff, puff. 3 figures turned into blood mist and fell on the spot. His figure went down through the gap extremely quickly. That scene made the first elders group stare at each other in anger. The first elder shouted angrily, "Kill him for me." His previous order was to capture the man, so the manpower on his side didn't exert their full force, making the man escape to the lower half of the mountain. The mountain protection ray should be executed at full strength. We can't let him escape. The second elder also gave out his order. No matter if it's in the heavens or the earth, you have nowhere to run. The third elder slapped at Zhang Han through the air. Is it? Zhang Han was pale, but then he turned to look at the third elder, revealing a faint but provocative and disdainful smile. He is arrogant. Many people were angry. But Zhang Han's figure flashed and moved to the left. Bang! With a muffled sound, Zhang Han got into the middle of the mountain. Hee, how dared you to perform a mere earth escape method in front of me? The first elder laughed furiously, and the energy of his spiritual sense energy suddenly shifted as if it had turned into threads, burrowing into the mountain, looking like tree roots. It expanded continuously and searched for Zhang Han's location. At this time, others kept moving and blocking off the lower side area in each direction. Do you think you can escape with such a method, ignorant? The second elder sneered. The heaven-earth formation covered more than just the air. There was nowhere to escape even if he went underground. It was just that the area of the main mount was a bit large anyway, and they couldn't allow him to make trouble of his own accord. Disciples within the sect should retreat quickly. The third elder gave the order. Witnessing such development, many people were in disarray as they fled in all directions. Zhang Han, who was deep inside the mountain, took out 2 pills and ate them, slightly healing his injuries. The soul sense secret method. I'm in trouble. Feeling the wildly expanding soul sense on his back, Zhang Han smiled bitterly. Operating the formation underground would not be as fluctuation-free as in the air, and to move it, one would have to swim through the mountainous land. Although his fluctuations were petty, they would be infinitely magnified in front of a heaven success martial artist. Since that's the case, let me have some fun with you. Zhang Han squinted his eyes slightly. Boom. The spiritual force in his body kept surging, smashing a direct pathway, which should be more appropriate to be called a rat hole. Get the hell out of here. The first elder was still furious at this point. At the thought of losing nearly 70 divine objects for no reason, the first elder felt that his heart was cringing in pain. He slapped down. Boom. There was a 100-meter wide palm print on the mountain. Chaotic rocks flew and the wind was strong. But the figure flew out of the grey mist extremely quickly. Whoosh. He headed straight for the 16 or 17 disciples of the Wind Snow School who were leaving a few 100 meters to the left below. He's escaping this way. No, kill him. These disciples were a little panicked, wondering whether they could be engaged in a battle with someone who could flee from the hands of the first elder and the others. 6 or 7 of them fled in all directions, while the rest turned around and launched attacks of their own. Suddenly, their eyes trembled slightly. They saw the figure in front of them taking a step forward that covered hundreds of meters. The instantaneous speed had gone twice beyond the speed of sound. What? The pupils of many protectors in the air shrank. Their attacks didn't even hit the man in the slightest. He is bringing his own destruction. The first elder twisted his eyebrows, and his eyes leaked fierceness. Energy was sweeping incessantly, forming a shield in front of the dozen or so disciples. It wasn't made to protect them, but to brew a terrifying attack, and Zhang Han was bound to die if he dared to enter. Zhang Han surely could see it. It's just a trifling skill. Zhang Han sneered and moved his right hand. Suddenly, a stream of light flashed. Puff, puff, puff. Zhang Han killed 5 disciples who were at the Grand Master Peak in an instant, leaving the ones who had reached the divine realm alone. Then he drilled down into the mountain again. This scene made many people shiver in anger. The first elder once again performed the secret method of transforming soul sense into silk, constantly blocking Zhang Han's escape route. However, every time the first elder located Zhang Han's position and was just about to attack him, he fled out of the mountain and flew off in another direction, constantly searching for disciples who were grandmasters in the midst of the chaos. Thus a short tug-of-war started. Zhang Guangyu and Dong Chen on the outside were also aware of the noise on this side. The heaven-earth formation was fully activated. Dong Chen's face was pale. Has he been discovered? Boom. Zhang Guangyu's face went pale. Well, what should we do? I'm going to break down the formation. You're just going to get yourself killed. Dong Chen said sternly, let's check on the situation first. Don't add to the chaos, and if necessary, I'll go. After that, their faces gradually became unpleasant. Zhang Han inside was also suffering. With a calm and subtle body movement, he dodged some attacks, which was to no avail in the end. His strength was still too weak compared to that of those above him, and there was no doubt that if they fought head-on, Zhang Han might not be able to take a single move from them. The important thing was that those people had seen his methods, and since they had never seen them before, they allowed Zhang Han to stall for some time, but next time, they would be alert. Zhang Han had once again performed the duplication illusions. But just after he finished performing it, the second elder slapped the ruler in his hand. Bang! Zhang Han was hit head-on. The wildly surging aftermath caused Zhang Han's body to spill blood, and his breath was even more dispirited. This won't work. Zhang Han once again drilled into the mountain. It looks like I still have to use that move. Zhang Han's gaze gradually became heavy. Feeling the direction, he fled to the foot of the mountain, breaking out of the water in the waterfall. Buzz! He threw the space ring into the waterfall, granting it a little spiritual energy. There were still 30 medium-grade crystals in it, including the heaven-piercing hammer, the 10 square wood, and the misty yang flower, all of which had to be discarded. You can't escape. The first elder put on a sardonic smile. I will burn your soul on the silver glow fire for 100 years. Boom. Suddenly, a crystalline screen appeared around Zhang Han's body. Other 10 protectors made a move at the same time, and countless energies crushed in. Bang! With a crunching sound, Zhang Han's body turned into a mist of blood. Huh? Is he dead? The second elder was furious as he swept his gaze towards the 10 protectors. Who told you to attack him with full strength? Well, the 10 protectors were dumb and tired as they thought. We only attacked him with 30% of our power. Suddenly a cold snort came out from the first elder. Come out. A harsh shout made the air hundreds of meters around the waterfall seem to be trembling. Puff. Zhang Han once again spat out a mouthful of blood and couldn't hide his figure. At this time, Zhang Han was less than 100 meters away from the heaven-earth formation. It could be said that the first elder and his group were not worried about him escaping in the slightest. That was because, in their opinion, it was impossible to break through the heaven-earth formation. At the same time, Zhang Han was only 50 to 60 meters away from Zhan San. He faintly looked at Zhan San with determination in his eyes and suddenly shouted, "Open the formation." Zhan San thought, what are you shouting at me for? Zhan San's gaze was fierce. Kill. Zhan San suddenly slashed across with his battle axe, and he only used 2% of his strength, for fear that if he cut down the men in front of him at once, he would have to bear the anger of the others by himself. And he also wanted to know, which force on earth it was that dared to do such a thing. Boom. A loud muffled sound was heard. Zhang Han's body once again waved a mist of blood and his entire body flew backward in the direction of the heaven-earth formation. Method formation. Buzz. The space ring suddenly appeared above the river, violently raising a fluctuation. Then, a gap of a 10-meter radius suddenly appeared. The heaven-earth formation has been broken through? For an instant, everyone was confused. Zhang Han got into the body in an extremely swift manner. And before he went out, he turned his head to look at Zhan San as if he were in cahoots with him, and he shouted, "Run away." After saying that, Zhang Han flickered out. Chase him. The first elder was monstrously furious, and after he gave his order, many protectors flew out. At this moment, the first elder, the second elder, and the third elder slowly looked towards Zhan San indifferently. Buzz. Zhan San felt dizzy and was gradually frightened. Zhan San thought, have I been framed? With cold sweat running down his forehead, Zhan San whispered, First elder, please hear me out first. But the answer he received was, take him down. Chapter 754, Be ready for a breakthrough. At this moment, Zhan San felt that his hairs were standing on end, and he was extremely nervous. Take me down? Should I run? Zhan San's hand which was holding the battle axe kept trembling. Looking at the second and third elders who were looking cold and getting closer, he had a desire to resist. He was at the heaven peak stage and would not die easily. All of them were at the peak level. Even as he faced the three elders, Zhan San felt that he had a good chance of escaping. It was just that he would suffer some serious injuries. But, could he escape? Hiss. Seeing a palm-sized jade bottle in the first elder's hand, Zhan San shivered abruptly and hurriedly put away his battle axe as he said acerbically, First elder, second elder, and third elder, I, Zhan San, have been working hard for the Wind Snow School for so many years. Do you doubt me just because of a few words from an outsider? Over the years, the gate of the small world had been closed, I've been through 30 battles in all kinds of sizes and had been seriously wounded 27 times, and have I ever complained? The Kung Fu didn't have any resources, and our resources were dwindling. I've led people down the ancient mines 50 times and faced dozens of life and death crises, and have I ever complained about anything? Zhang Han looked very agitated. He hissed as the second and third elders arrived. Then he said hoarsely, "After the gate of the small world opened, I didn't take credit. Instead, I used the treasures I fought for to refine the battle axe, which was to annihilate the Heavenly Knights sect. You can ask the disciples within the sect. Without me, the Kung Fu Wind Snow School would have been f***ing annihilated. I paid a high price to ask some sects to come out. Only after that did we withstand the attacks of the Heavenly Knights sect. And now you want to arrest me, right? All right, come on, just kill me if you can." His words made the second and third elders' expressions freeze. They were also a little confused. After stretching out their arms, they ultimately didn't take him down. Instead, they stood on his sides. Humphrey. The first elder was silent for a long time and snorted, then he withdrew the jade bottle. Feeling furious, he said in an angry tone, "It didn't work the first time, and it still hasn't worked up to now. For what reason? Oh, because the energy was stolen. How did he get into the sect when he's just a Grand Master? The Heaven-Earth formation was fully activated. How did he just leave? Zhang Han, you disappoint me. How come your refinement method didn't notice him at all? There were a total of 69 divine objects. Oh, Zhang Han, this isn't an unreasonable suspicion. As to whether it has anything to do with you, we will naturally know once we catch him, even if it has nothing to do with you. How should you be accounted for the loss of the divine objects?" The first elder was so confused that he couldn't even figure out how that kid had gotten in, and with his strength, which hadn't reached the divine realm, how could he have broken into the formation? God was definitely playing a prank on him. There's got to be someone on the inside. He ha ha he. The first elder suddenly laughed. He was so furious that he ended up laughing. "I'd like to see who it is that has set this scheme against the Wind Snow School. Zhang Han, I also want to believe that you have nothing to do with this. It is fine that he stole the energy, but you should annihilate the forces behind him to make up for it." Although the first elder was angry in secret, he didn't lose his mind. He thought, if Zhang Han colluded with outsiders, it would be fine. Then he should lead the charge and annihilate them. Of course, First Elder thought further. The most important thing at the moment was to capture the man. But hope dazzled in Zhang San's eyes. Zhang San said, "If I find which place he is in, I will lead the way to annihilate him." The first elder gave him a faint glance and rushed out with a movement skill. The other two elders and Zhang San also followed him. This made Zhang San feel relieved, but at the same time, he felt miserable. My battle axe didn't succeed and now I've ended up in this situation. Who the hell did I provoke? He felt that completely miserable. He could even feel his heart was trembling. At the same time, his hatred for that unknown kid grew even stronger. His killing intent simply couldn't be stopped. However, on the outside, Dongchen and Zhang Wenyu, who were staring at the main mount intently, didn't even blink their eyes anymore. Buzz. Suddenly, a gap formed and a figure came out in a mess. He came out. Zhang Wenyu looked distressed. He wanted to go forward. "Don't move yet." Dongchen's face was a bit ugly, and he pressed against Zhang Wenyu's shoulder with his palm. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Zhang Han came out without pausing, and his figure transformed into a stream of light heading north. In less than a second, the gap opened wide. A swarm formed by dozens of people flew out from it, including 8 Heaven Realm cultivators and several others at the Earth Realm. With red eyes, they came out and chased after Zhang Han with an extremely fast speed. Some of them couldn't stop shouting, "Where are you going to escape? No matter if it's in heaven or the earth, you can't get away today. Shoot him." The scene left Dongchen dumbfounded. Dongchen thought, How many heavenly treasures did Zhang Han absorb? The Wind Snow School sent out so many people to chase after him, which is simply overbearing. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Another 4 figures flew out even faster, who turned to be the 3 elders and Zhan San. Each of them looked incomparably ugly, as if they had lost their parents, especially the old rival, Zhan San. Not only did he look ugly, he also had a pale complexion. He was standing at the center of the other 3 elders, who seemed to be vaguely blocking and restricting him. They soon disappeared from sight. Quickly, go save him. Zhang Wenyi's eyes were red, his thoughts were wild and uncontrollable, and his breath was growing stronger. Then his eyes began to dazzle with a hint of light red light. Don't be impulsive. Dong Chen was helpless. He sighed and said, "We'll only fall if we go up the now. Even if you have the secret method, at most, you'll only be a match against someone at the heaven early stage." This time, Zhang Guanyu wasn't calmed by Dong Chen's words. He turned to look at him. "Do you want me to watch my son die? No, you're underestimating him." Dong Chen smiled bitterly. "What your son showed us was just the tip of the iceberg. He was able to flee from the most dangerous male mount, and in this extensive land, can these people still catch him? Just look at it. He came out and went straight north, around 300 miles to the north. Isn't the Wu Ming sect there? The Wu Ming sect, could it be that?" Zhang Wenyi's face changed slightly. "Does he wants to bring misfortune to the east? But it's too risky. Whatever it is, we won't be watching, so let's follow them first. If he really can't hold on, I'll step in to lure away most of the people, and you should take the opportunity to take him away." Dong Chen finished his words slowly. He didn't give Zhang Guanyu another chance to speak, as he quickly moved and started flying. Zhang Guanyu bit his teeth and followed. "I'm such a wimp." At this moment, Zhang Guanyu's heart was trembling. He felt so uncomfortable about the fact that his son was facing a crisis. He had to wait for an opportunity to act. However, the following scene not only made Zhang Guanyu feel that his heart ached, but also made him feel a little surprised. Facing many people, Zhang Han had no idea of fighting back. Several attacks suddenly descended, and Zhang Han's figure turned into more than 100 ones, fleeing in all directions. Although the crowd waved their hands to annihilate him, Zhang Han always appeared hundreds of meters away from them, gaining 2 seconds of time. Occasionally, he would burrow into the ground, pass by rivers and lakes, and enter them while showing off his body skills. People who were chasing after Zhang Han suffered a lot. The elders wanted to catch the man alive, so they gave orders to not hit him hard. They were afraid that once they exerted excessive energy, they would get that kid killed, but if they attacked him lightly, they were never able to hit him. In such a tight situation, they marched forward for an hour. The Wu Ming sect could be vaguely seen in the horizon. "Huh?" The first elder furrowed his eyebrows, and finally, he gave an order: "Kill him." Boom. The entire sky was covered with violent energy. Zhang Han's face changed slightly, then his body fled forward at a great speed. He exerted his divine walking trick to the extreme, leaving behind a trail of after images. Even so, he was still injured by the many aftershocks, injuring him more and more. Zhang Han gritted his teeth and turned his head to look at the first elder who had just injured him. The two of them gazed at each other for a fraction of a second. Suddenly, Zhang Han opened his mouth. "Elder Zhan, are you going to stand by and watch me die? Huh?" In a moment, many people looked at Zhan San. What did this mean? Nonsense. Zhan San was furious. "Elder Zhan, if I die, all of this energy will be gone." "Nonsense, I'll kill you." With a giant axe in his hand, Zhan San was about to move his body, only to be blocked by several strong breaths. Helplessly, he cut through the air, and a large blade cut deep ravines out of a small mountain. The energy struck in all directions. Zhang Han slowed down his speed, and suddenly under the impact, there was a qualitative leap in his speed. It seemed that this axe hack of Zhan San was specifically designed to blow that man away. taking his previous words into consideration. The crowd looked at Zhang Han with different eyes. It wasn't that they were easily fooled, it was only because based on their understanding of the heaven-earth formation, they knew it wouldn't be broken at all, and if this mystery wasn't resolved, they would always be suspicious of Zhang Han. They thought, speaking of the heaven-earth formation, it withstood the Heavenly Knights sect successfully. How come a brat at the Grand Master realm came in just like that? Zhang Han was deeply aggrieved. He thought, I don't f***ing know anything. Zhang Han was fast and didn't forget to kindly remind Zhang Han, Elder Zhan, don't worry about me, run away, hum. The Grand Elder of the Wind Snow School turned livid and snorted coldly, finish him quickly and easily. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Those at the back followed him extremely quickly, executing all sorts of tricks. Zhang Han's escape had really surprised those strong people. There's something strange about his speed. What kind of body movement is this? How come he dodged my attack again? He's not even at the divine realm. We must not allow him to escape today, otherwise, we will surely be disgraced if word gets out. Encircle him. Too much time was wasted before. How could he have escaped if we had gone all out from the start? Many strong men were in a semi-encircling position at the rear, slowly pressing forward. Their speed was faster than Zhang Han's. But Zhang Han's secret methods were countless, which discouraged them every time, and during all this time, Zhang Han hadn't received a single attack head-on. Finally, 10 more minutes of bitter chasing passed. It was tough. But Zhang Han was relieved. The Wu Ming sect? The Grand Elder of the Wind Snow School furrowed his eyebrows slightly. Under the many gazes, Zhang Han shouted, Elder Zhan, let's get out of here. After saying that, he took out a token in his hand, which shone brightly. Then, the mountain protection ray of the Wu Ming sect flashed in an area in front of Zhang Han. Then he crashed into it and his figure disappeared. Swish. The faces of all the people from the Wind Snow School, including Zhang Han, turned ugly. Wu Ming sect, how dare you? Whoosh. The first elder was so furious that a meteor hammer appeared in his right hand and he smashed it in the direction of the Wu Ming sect. A stream of monstrous energy struck at the Wu Ming sect head-on, and the mountain protection ray trembled a few times before restoring its calmness. Other protectors also attacked it with fury. In less than a minute, the Wu Ming sect's mount gate flickered, from which 50 to 60 people appeared, including the head and the elders. Wind Snow School? The head of Wu Ming sect didn't look good. He frowned and said, "What are you guys trying to do? What for? How come you don't know about it? You're playing dumb, aren't you?" The second elder of the Wind Snow School said in an angry voice, "Hand him over." "What did you say?" The Wu Ming sect was also a top sect in the Kungzu world. Although it was not as powerful as the Wind Snow School, it wasn't weak either. At this time, the headmaster was somewhat angry. "You openly attacked the Wu Ming sect. How come you want us to hand over someone from our group? Elder Zhan, you promised me something, but you still haven't fulfilled it. I helped you in the first place. Do the people from the Wind Snow School repay kindness with revenge?" Swish. Many people stared at Zhang Han once again. Zhang Han was already a little confused at this point. He thought, I didn't do anything. Zhang Han. A furious shout came from the mouth of the Grand Elder of the Wind Snow School. Puff. Zhang Han spurted out a mouthful of blood, feeling completely confused. Far above in the sky, Dong Chen looked shocked. How is it possible? He could relate to it. But other people surely wouldn't dare to believe that Zhang Han had broken the formation of a sect. He mustn't tell anyone about this, since it could be used as a weapon in the future. Instead, Zhang Wangyu fixed his eyes on the nearby area. Where's my son? He didn't care about anything else. Neither would he care if the fighting between the Wind Snow School and the Wu Ming sect would turn the world upside down. He just wanted to know where Zhang Han was. Suddenly, a faint voice sounded in Zhang Guangyu's ears. Quickly, come this way. Following the force, Zhang Guangyu turned his head to look. only to see that there was a mountain 1,000 meters behind him, where Zhang Han was lying without a single breath coming out of him. Go! Zhang Wenyi's heart was pounding with fear. He moved his body quickly and flew over. How are you? As Zhang Wenyi looked at Zhang Han, whose face was pale, his eyes were red with distress, Zhang Han said extremely weakly, I am fine. Let's go back first. I can't hide for long. Eat these first. Dong Chen took out 3 medicinal pellets. Each of them was emitting the scent of a divine object. At this time, Zhang Han forgot all manners and ate them in one bite. Then they quickly evacuated with Zhang Han. Just 10 minutes after they made their escape, they sensed an extremely dense and powerful breath behind them, which was earth-shattering. They're fighting. Dong Chen sighed. It would be nice if they were fighting a life-and-death battle. Although it was a fight, the two sides wouldn't consume anything, and those people from the Wu Ming sect couldn't beat the Wind Snow School. Anyway, the Wu Ming sect was well known for its retreating habits, which the Wind Snow School could do nothing about for a moment. And since Zhang Han's figure had appeared, once the disciples of Wind Snow School checked on it, they would know that he wasn't anyone from the Wu Ming sect. And with his attack in Singapore, Zhang Han couldn't hide this matter from them for too long. I guess an all-out war with the Wind Snow School is about to begin. Dong Chen shook his head slightly. So what? What's due will come sooner or later. Zhang Guanyu carried Zhang Han on his back, and his eyes were blood-red, dazzling with mad-killing intent. Yes. Dong Chen nodded and smiled again, looking at Zhang Han, who was concentrating on recovering from his injuries with his eyes closed. He slowly said, It's a miracle, your son is awesome. He was genuinely a bit convinced as well as curious. He thought, where did Zhang Han get so many of his secret body movements and arts from? Although the group didn't attack him at full strength, the fact that their realm was so oppressive was still there. In this situation, how did he manage to escape? And where did he go in the end? He didn't enter Wu Ming sect. How did he disappear? A lot of questions were on his mind. Even he was at a loss, let alone the group behind him, and it was because of those doubts that they were fighting. The Wu Ming sect was probably going to have a headache. But Dong Chen was happy to see that the Wu Ming sect had sided with Zhan San back then and tried their best to stop the Heavenly Knights sect, which Dong Chen had always remembered. It's just, he is so badly injured, he surely can't recover within a month. I hope his foundation wasn't compromised. Dong Chen sighed again, seeing that Zhang Guanyu was in a bad mood. He remained silent as well. The flight lasted for more than 3 hours. When they reached the main gate of the Heavenly Knights sect, Zhang Han also opened his eyes. Zhang Han spoke in a somewhat weak tone, Dad, put me down. Zhang Guanyu responded somewhat sulkily, you were injured to such a degree, what's the point of putting you down? Then he tightened his grip on Zhang Han again, carrying him to the top of the mountain. Zhang Han replied, go back to the residence, I'll talk to Meng Meng and the others. It's useless to heal my wounds now, prepare the furnace, I need to go back to Mount New Moon. You. Zhang Guanyu was sullen as he helplessly put down Zhang Han. Anyway, it was good for Zhang Han to come back safely. Zhang Guanyu was actually angry with himself. I'm going to the 6th Elders, I'll meet you at the mountain gate later, said Dong Chen. Then he flew to the back of the mountain. Zhang Han, on the other hand, walked up to the residence on foot. By then, he had recovered a little from his injuries. His face was still pale, but he smiled when he saw Meng Meng and Ziyan, who were playing on the lawn. Zhang Han muttered to himself, I said I'd be back, and I will definitely stand by my words. He was well aware of how much he had spent to perform the secret disappearance at the last minute. Moreover, he had performed the most supreme kind. There was a crack in his dantian, and the injury was so severe that soaking for a year in the Heaven Lake wouldn't do him any good. It's still a bit risky for you to make a breakthrough in this state, isn't it? Zhang Wenyu hesitated, but he still suggested, there are still many martial art resources in our treasury, why don't you heal your wounds first? Zhang Han shook his head slightly. It's useless. I can't hold it down indefinitely. I'll just break through. If the damage to my foundation hasn't been repaired, it will be even more troublesome for my recovery. His 10,000 thunderclouds were making trouble all the time. With his ruptured 10-inch stanchion, it was a tricky problem to solve. Even Zhang Han had to move immediately, but before that, he still had to do something. Before he got close enough, he called out softly, "Meng Meng." "Huh, Papa?" Meng Meng's large and clear eyes lit up. Then she gave up playing with Dai and flew over. Xian also smiled elegantly and stepped forward. The ordinary people like Zif next to her didn't feel anything, but Rong Jiali and Chen Chenqing changed the looks on their faces greatly. That was because they could feel that Zhang Han's breath was too chaotic, and they could feel his weakness even more. Zhang Han had been badly injured. Whoosh! They quickly approached Zhang Han. But Zhang Han didn't look at them. He could only see Meng Meng. Seeing that the little girl was running at him, he seemed to forget all the physical pain. Crouching down, he stretched out his arms, and only when Meng Meng jumped into his arms did he stand up with her in his arms, laughing lightly. Chapter 755, An All-Out War. Meng Meng withdrew her little head, blinked her big shiny eyes, and said with a pout, "Papa, why are you back so late? Mama, and Grandma have missed you. I've missed you guys too." Zhang Han grinned, but as soon as he laughed, he hurriedly closed his mouth and blushed slightly. It was clear to everyone that Zhang Han seemed to have swallowed a large mouthful of saliva, but as for what exactly he had swallowed, it was clear to everyone. "Son, you." Rong Jiali shuddered and covered her mouth with her hand. Fortunately, she was wearing a hat and others couldn't see her tears streaming down her face. Xian also sensed something. She slightly opened her mouth, and her eyes were instantly red. Chen Chenqing looked nervous, and Rong Jiaxin, Wang Ming, and the others also looked a little bad. What is going on? They looked at Zhang Guengyu beside them. But Zhang Guengyu couldn't explain it to them. He could only remain silent. He was distressed, but he couldn't do anything. Anyway, what was done couldn't be undone. Wu Dai was scratching its head behind them, looking very low. It had just broken through the divine realm. Originally, it was expecting that its master would come back to praise it, but its master was injured. "Oh!" Little Hai cried out in a low voice, slowly walking to Zhang Han's feet. It lay down on the ground without even wagging its tail anymore. Tiny Tot was confused and didn't understand anything, so it leaned against Dai's leg. If it was a minor injury, then they wouldn't have reacted so strongly, but all the martial artists present sensed that Zhang Han's breath was draining away, which was baffling. Zhang Han's face reddened for a few seconds and then turned pale again. He shook his head slightly, indicating that they shouldn't have reacted so. Then he looked at Meng Meng again and smiled as he said, "Meng Meng, Daddy and Grandpa have to go out again." "Papa, why are you going out again?" Meng Meng pouted up her little lips, looking unhappy. "We came here rather quickly and forgot to get some toys for you, Dai, and Little Hai. Daddy will pick some up on the way to do some business. Then Meng Meng wants to come along too." Xian secretly wiped her eyes and said beside Meng Meng, "Meng Meng, let's stay here and wait for your papa, okay? But I want to come along." Meng Meng was a little lost. However, upon deliberation, she thought she couldn't do anything. After all, her mama had spoken and there was no way she could argue with them. Then she muttered again, "Papa, you should be back soon." "I will." Zhang Han smiled slightly and pinched Meng Meng's little face. "Be obedient to your mommy and daddy will bring you ice cream." "Got it. Then daddy and grandpa will go back first." Zhang Han handed Meng Meng to Xian after he finished speaking. He looked at Rong Jiali and Xian and laughed lightly. "I'll be back in a day or two." Zhang Guengyu chimed in and nodded as he said, "Don't worry, it's no big deal. Wait for us to return." After saying that, he left with Zhang Han, and when he reached a place out of sight of the crowd, Zhang Han's entire body went weak. Zhang Wangyu sighed. He carried Zhang Han on his back and said, "Don't be so adventurous next time." "I won't." Zhang Han smiled bitterly. As the saying goes, nothing ventured, nothing gained. In Zhang Han's opinion, it was a complete success this time. Despite the injuries and the crack in his dantian, after breaking through to the innateness, everything would recover, and he wondered what kind of great progress he could make in his strength by then. Arriving at the main entrance of the sect, Dong Chen waved his palm and the sixth elder's alchemy furnace appeared. "Be careful, you guys." He didn't intend to follow them. If the Wind Snow School learned that Zhang Han was from the Heavenly Knights sect, they would surely be overwhelmingly furious and would definitely go there to make a scene. After all, dozens of divine objects had been consumed. It wasn't something that everyone could afford. Large sects could only have 100 or so divine objects, and the Wind Snow School might have more, but they couldn't withstand such consumption. "I know, we will go first." Zhang Wangyu put away the alchemy furnace, and with a movement of his body, he appeared above the Xuanhuan river. Then a token appeared in his hand, which was emitting light. The heaven-earth formation was activated, which was communicating with the world. After that, a channel appeared. Whoosh! Flashing into it, the two of them disappeared. Dong Chen looked at him twice and sighed once more. "I hope he can recover from his injuries. Otherwise it would be bad if he had a permanent damage to his foundation." As soon as he finished speaking, a figure suddenly flew in at a fast speed. It was the awful-looking sixth elder, who looked grief-stricken. "Dong Chen, you stole my alchemy furnace and you beat me up. You crossed the line. I was so close to refining my riding wind bellet. You're too much of a bully today." Bang! Before he could finish his tirade, Dong Chen slapped him, making the six elders figure whirl to the side. Dong Chen sighed again and touched his forehead, feeling very tired. He thought, why do I have a tendency to move towards being evil ever since they came? I devoured spirit beasts and robbed somebody else's alchemy furnace. On the other hand, at the front of the Wu Ming sect, the great battle continued in heated pace. A total of 7 heaven-state strong masters plus 20 earthly states from the Wu Ming sect were fighting chaotically against the people from the Wind Snow School. The head of the Wu Ming sect couldn't be more agitated. "You guys shouldn't be too excessive. Hand over that man, or die." The Grand Elder of the Wind Snow School was expressionless as he made his moves effortlessly. "Who the FK should I hand over to you?" The head of Wu Ming sect was furious. "Not long ago, we all went together to help you fight against the Heavenly Knights sect, and now you're just going to attack us, aren't you? And you, Zhan San, ungrateful beastard, where are the divine objects you promised me? You don't give me the stuff and you bring people to attack the Wu Ming sect. Do you really think I'm afraid of you?" Zhan San was in a dilemma at this moment. He roared, "How come I am ungrateful? I don't have a f-king clue. I promised to pay you guys and I will stand by my words, but you guys are robbing my sect's treasures, which are a total of 69 types of divine objects. Today, if you don't bring them out, we're going to annihilate your Wu Ming sect." "Huh?" The head of the Wu Ming sect was stunned for a moment, but was quickly incensed. "Beastard." Bang, 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 bang. The battle was getting more and more intense. But when the first elder and the others were fighting, they were intending to encircle Zhan San. In their opinion, this matter was bizarre in every way, and they couldn't allow Zhan San to escape. Zhan San also felt the malice, and he grew increasingly frustrated and angrier. Then he attacked without mercy. Puff! With a single hack of his axe, he injured 3 Earthrealm warriors from the Wu Ming sect. "Zhan San, I will surely kill you." The head of the Wu Ming sect was furious, but he waved his hand and ordered, "Retreat." They couldn't against their counterparts, and if the fighting continued, their side would probably be on the losing end. Those people were the backbone of the sect, so he couldn't afford to lose them. So they all withdrew and went back to the Wu Ming sect, and the mountain protection ray was fully activated. The first elder was not afraid. "Zhan San, lead the fight." "Yes." At this time, Zhang Han would not dare to refute at all. He took more than a dozen Earth Success warriors with him to constantly attack the Heaven-Earth formation of the Wu Ming sect. The Heaven-Earth formation would usually not consume anything at all, but if it was always activated, it would need to consume crystals. Each sect had crystal reserves, but once the crystals were depleted, the formation could still be broken. It wasn't invincible. The Grand Elder of the Wind Snow School waved his hand and ordered, "Go and inform the main sect and the other 3 major subsects. Order Sky Dragon to personally lead the team. Within a month, I want to trample over the Wu Ming sect." Those people inside had also heard those words. The head of the Wu Ming sect was shivering in anger, but he was confused and wondered about what had happened. The Wind Snow School sent the notification out quite swiftly. After 12 hours, groups and groups of people answered the call. The First Elder's side had gradually gathered more than 30 Heaven Realm martial artists, more than 60 Earth Realm martial artists, and more than 300 Divine Realm martial artists. Fight. The First Elder led the way by himself. More than 100 people attacked with all their strength at the same time, sending a tremor through the mountain protection formation of the Wu Ming sect. They attacked for an hour, then another group of people would take their place, and then another group would take over after an hour. As the fight went on for more than 10 hours, the head of the Wu Ming sect looked ugly. The crystals were consumed quickly, but they could maintain this, and there were several ways to do so. However, this kind of pointless consumption was infuriating. At the same time, the fluctuations produced were also detected by many sects, and all of them were astonished. "What did you say?" The Wind Snow School crowd didn't attack the Heavenly Knights sect. Instead, they went to fight against the Wu Ming sect, right? Is this a joke? The Wind Snow School has never had much to do with the Wu Ming sect. The Wu Ming sect had even lent their manpower to protect the Kungsu Wind Snow School not long ago. The Sky Dragon and Zhang Han had promised them quite a bit of payment. How come the payment turned out to be revenge? Is it evil for good, or is there another reason? It's a joke. The Wind Snow School is too greedy. Many sects were discussing, and their curiosity had been piqued. Finally, on the second day, the head of the Wu Ming sect couldn't hold himself back. Appearing from another direction, he raged at the crowd of the Wind Snow School. "That's enough. Do you really think I'm a weakling? If you don't give me an explanation today, I will contact the Martial Alliance and start an all-out war against the Wind Snow School. Hand him over." The Grand Elder of the Wind Snow School looked indifferent. "Whom should we hand over to you? Tell me, who are you looking for, huh? Or should I hand myself to you?" The head of Wu Ming sect was so angry that he reached out and pointed at the Grand Elder of the Wind Snow School. This time, the First Elder was silent for 2 seconds, and with a wave of his right hand, many spiritual forces formed a 10-meter-tall figure. "Call him out. Who is he? We don't have such a person in the Wu Ming sect." First Elder ordered again with a cold face, "Carry on with the attack." The look on the First Elder's face indicated that if the Wu Ming sect wouldn't hand the man over, he would beat them up. The look on the head of Wu Ming sect's face was stiff. He was suddenly a bit confused, wondering whether they had this person in his sect. Whoosh! He moved back to the sect and said, "All the members of the Wu Ming sect, assemble at the martial training ground." As the attack went on, several disciples among the group of God Realm disciples had a puzzled expression on their faces. Suddenly, one of them flew close to the First Elder, arched his hand, and said, "First Elder, the person you projected seemed familiar, but I didn't see him clearly, so I wonder if you could summon his image again." "Huh?" The First Elder furrowed his eyebrows slightly. He moved his right hand and mimicked Zhang Han's appearance again. The disciple squinted, looking thoughtful, and 2 seconds later, his face changed slightly as he said, He doesn't seem to be from the world lit. Who is he? Say it." As if seeing hope, Zhang Han moved his body and rushed over, just as one would see in the movies. He looked excited as if he wanted to shake the disciple's shoulders. But before he could get close enough, the second elder moved horizontally and blocked his path as he said indifferently, "What? Trying to kill someone?" Zhang Han was speechless. He looked around with a confused look on his face and noticed that everyone else had the same expression. Then his heart pumped. Puff. Zhang Han was so angry he spat out blood, then refrained from saying anything else. Many people were startled. Even that disciple's face flashed with a trace of fear as he approached the first elder and whispered, "If I remember it correctly, hiss." Before he finished speaking, he felt a lot of cold glares. The crowd thought, "If you know who he is, just say it. Why did you have to clarify that you have remembered it correctly?" No, number. I know who he is." The disciple hurriedly changed his words. "He's a worldly celestial talent, Zhang Han, who is based on Mount New Moon in Hong Kong. Last time, I heard from Shi Fengyu that he would go out to slay Zhang Han after finishing his practice. It is said that he suffered a loss because of Zhang Han in the world. The Zhang Han from Mount New Moon?" The first elder became even more confused and turned his head to look at Zhang Han. The first elder thought, did he collude with an outsider to steal the clan's divine objects? But does he have the guts? It looks like it's him. Another disciple hurriedly came closer and said, "Not long ago, Senior Marshal Brother Yao Feng came out and learned that Zhang Han possessed a divine object, and had killed a dozen or so sect disciples brought by Shi Fengyu. After using this as an excuse, Yao Feng went over and never came back. Then I also learned about Zhang Han's existence. Zhang Han and Emperor King are good friends. Behind them is Gai Xingkong, the Chan clan's warlord. Wang in Hong Kong is quite close to them as well." "Exactly." Suddenly a disciple at the very edge came forward. "If it's Zhang Han, then this matter might be a bit troublesome. I have a friend in Singapore who said that the Ziclan in Singapore had played to someone powerful. Zhang Han is the son-in-law of the Ziclan. What's more, it is said that Zhang Han's father is from the Heavenly Knights sect, and the Heavenly Knights sect had sent out a Heaven Peak stage warrior to take control of the situation for them." The Heavenly Knights sect. As soon as the disciple finished his words, the atmosphere on the field completely chilled down. Zhang Han roared, "It turns out to be Heavenly Knights sect. Oh, how I hate them." The first elder gave him a cold glance. "How did someone from the Heavenly Knights sect appear at your place? Tell me, how did he get in?" "I don't know either, first elder, I really don't know. He's even entered the Wu Ming sect, so how could he have anything to do with me?" For a while, the surrounding crowd was in confusion. At that moment, the head of the Wu Ming sect appeared from the side and said in a cold voice, "This person is not in our sect, and if you don't give me an explanation today, we'll have to join hands with the Heavenly Knights sect and start a war against you. Do you think you are the only one with allies? Someone." Suddenly, the first elder shouted in anger, "Send someone to contact the Caprice Mo sect, the Limitless sect, the Seven Ming Abyss, the Ten Tigers sect." In one breath, he stated 7 sects in a row. Hearing his words, the head of the Wu Ming sect was a bit confused as he thought, is he determined to annihilate the Wu Ming sect? He was nervous for a moment. They would have too much to lose if there was a fight. But what the first elder said in the next moment made him feel slightly relieved. "Gather at Heavenly Knights sect at noon tomorrow and attack with all your might. Trample down the Heavenly Knights sect." Boom. The first elder's voice was like rolling thunder. It spread across the surrounding tens of miles, shocking all of those present. Many disciples from the other sects who were watching from afar were also shocked. FCK, the Wind Snow School is going to wage a full-scale war with their Heavenly Knights sect. There are a total of 8 sects. The Heavenly Knights sect is probably going to suffer this time. Quickly go back and report to the master. Many of them were shocked. The first elder and the rest, on the other hand, moved and flew quickly towards the south. Their figures were about to disappear from sight. Only then did the head of the Wu Ming sect come to his senses. Shouldn't you give me an explanation? Are they leaving after the fight? Wind Snow School. He roared. But he ended up getting a reply from the first elder who was far away, which was, if this matter has anything to do with you, the Wu Ming sect will also be annihilated, but if you have nothing to do with it, I will personally come and apologize. The head of Wu Ming sect rose his eyebrows. Well then, I'll be waiting for your apology. He surely would not dare to intervene in such a matter. With the 8 sects fiercely attacking on one side, could the Heavenly Knights sect stop them? Even if they had a lot of crystal reserves, would the Mountain Protection Array still work with so many people attacking for 1 or 2 months in a row? In his opinion, the Heavenly Knights sect would be in a difficult position. On the other side, when Zhang Guangyu and Zhang Han appeared on the lake, the ground was already beneath their feet, the island had been enlarged, and some simple buildings were being built around it. After all, this exit would be stable for a long time. Whoosh! Zhang Guangyu carried Zhang Han on his back and flew directly to the south. Zhang Han partly opened his eyes and said weakly, "Go the biplane." Zhang Guangyu directly refused him, saying in an affirmative tone, "Flying there is the fastest." Zhang Han felt a little helpless, but he didn't say anything. He closed his eyes and continued to digest the 3 medicinal pellets he had taken. The crack in his danshan was breaking the balance in his body. The spiritual force was rioting in his meridians. Even the pellets could only ease the situation rather than really heal the wound, and with the constantly flickering Ti would thunder in his soul sense sea, he could only make a breakthrough. The speed was fast, and so was the consumption of spiritual force. Along the way, Zhang Guangyu had taken 5 pellets, but he was still a little tired from such a high-intensity flight. In 5 hours, they finally arrived at Mount New Moon. Many people were gathered around the Thunder Yang tree when they arrived, but Zhang Guangyu didn't say anything. He only waved his hand for them not to disturb. They only took a few glances and left. Then they stood at a distance and watched them. Zhang Guangyu looked at the weakly standing Zhang Han and asked with great concern, "Are you still okay?" "I'm fine." Zhang Han shook his head slightly and pressed his right hand through the air towards Thunder Yang tree. Buzz, buzz, buzz. For a moment, the Thunder Yang tree, the Thunder Yang flower, and the Thunder Yang grass emitted a crystal blue light. After that, a strand of pure energy was formed. At the same time, the Thunder Yang tree trembled, and the Thunder Yang wood that was forming at the top left its body and slowly floated down. Seeing this, Zhang Guangyu silently took out a 5th-rank alchemy furnace. "Be careful," he couldn't help but warn him. "Got it." Zhang Han nodded slightly and smiled, and the Thunder Yang wood fell into his hands. Clatter. Suddenly, a monstrous breath was condensed on Zhang Han's body, and his eyes also flashed with crystal blue light, which, along with many energies, formed a phosphorescent blue flame at the bottom of the alchemy furnace, while Zhang Han murmured in a low voice, "Starting from the Thunder Yang, stopping at life and death, starting from emptiness and ending in emptiness." What Zhang Han said was not necessary for alchemy. Instead, he was drawing the energy of the 3 greatest treasures of the Thunder Yang, which could be used to refine the Thunder Yang wood along with some of Zhang Han's soul sense. Puff. The wind began to blow around. It was a wind caused by energy, which was constantly whistling. This scene left Zhang Guangyu a bit dazed. This was the first time he had seen alchemy done this way. He didn't even need to use the firestone. But every time the 6th elder does alchemy, he would control the firestone discreetly. Whenever he is careless, he would blow up the furnace. His son was using a different way to do alchemy. He really knows how to do alchemy, and he seems to be very good at it. Zhang Guangyu was a little absent-minded. Chapter 756, Innateness Stage. Zhang Han's movements and energy were mostly produced by the 3 divine objects. He didn't use much spiritual force himself, but his spiritual sense emerging was still relatively majestic. Even so, looking at his relatively easy movements, Zhang Guangyu felt that he was different, at least different from the 6th elder. The 6th elder was a genius in alchemy. Puff. The energy storm became more and more violent. At this time, Zhang Han seemed to have turned into an alchemy king, and all kinds of energies were gathered between his waving hands. If the qi in the furnace didn't rise, Zhang Guangyi would have thought that Zhang Han was not refining pills, but making soup. Under his father's gaze, Zhang Han was extremely calm while constantly adding all kinds of things he needed to the furnace mix. From his casual appearance, it seemed that he was adding some seasonings while cooking. As time went by, 4 hours later, boom, a muffled sound came from the furnace. Did the furnace explode? Zhang Guangyi looked pale. He remembered that when the 6-elder furnace exploded, something similar would happen. Suddenly, a crystal blue streamer came out of the furnace, and his face slightly changed. Medicinal pellet. The qi is so solid, this pill. Zhang Wengyu's eyes widened. High-end divine object. His alchemy skill. Zhang Guangyi was a little shocked. It seemed that the success rate of a level 5 pill for the 6th elder was less than 10%, and it took him dozens of times to make it. How could Zhang Han make it so easily when he gave it a try? Top-level Thunder Yang pellet, what a pity. Zhang Han exhaled and shook his head slightly. If I wasn't injured, it would have been the best Thunder Yang pellet. But that was enough. His current strength exceeded his realm, and there was almost no difference between the top-level pill and the best for him. Finally, it's time to break through. Taking a slight breath, Zhang Han felt that his body was burning, but that pain was not a big deal. After reaching the innateness stage, he had improved a lot. With his strength, the 10 inches Danshan and the 10,000 thunderclouds were the biggest trump cards he had, but only after breaking through the nature level could he show their true power. Sitting cross-legged, Zhang Han raised his right hand with the medicinal pellet and put it down again. He opened his eyes, looked around and sighed. Somewhere else. Shen Qingqing could even cause damage to the surrounding environment when he broke through to the divine realm, let alone Zhang Han. He thought the new moon mountain was a good place and didn't want to destroy it because of his breakthrough. Where to go? Zhang Guangyi raised his eyebrows and said, since you are so weak, you'd better take the medicinal pellet as soon as possible. Even if it is damaged, we can repair it. I'm afraid it will be too destructive. Zhang Han shook his head slightly. With his soul sense, he marked a position and said, go here. Ah? Zhang Guangyi was slightly stunned. Isn't that the deep sea? After thinking for a while, Zhang Guangyi didn't say anything more. He carried Zhang Han on his back and flew towards the South Sea like a light. Where did they go? I don't know, maybe they are flying towards the sea. Our boss was refining pills just now, is he going to break through? Seeing this, the people on the mountain were all discussing and guessing that Zhang Han might be going to make a breakthrough, which made them feel a little excited. From the outset, their boss was the most powerful in their eyes. Later, they learned that Zhang Han was at the Grand Master Peak stage and could even kill someone at the Divine Realm because of his powerful secret methods. But Emperor King Geixingkong, Wang and the warlord of Chan clan he had met later were all at the Divine Realm, and Zhang Han was relatively weaker compared with them. In fact, the members of the security group also wanted to see their boss dominate the martial artist world. They had been looking forward to Zhang Han's breakthrough for a long time. This day, Zhang Han seemed to be about to make a breakthrough, which made these people feel excited, but they were still a little confused. Why is our boss being carried? They vaguely guessed something but didn't think too much of it. They would know the reason when their boss came back. Zhang Guangyi carried Han on his back and flew out of the clouds. On the beach, there were many people who were training. With them, the safety factor of Mount New Moon was relatively high. After the two flew over, a few people on the ground looked up and couldn't help but discuss. Is that General Zhang and his father? He can fly to the skies and hide underground like a carefree immortal. Martial artist. Many people admired martial artists, but they knew that the martial world was not peaceful, it was extremely dangerous instead. Martial artists were not as magnificent and unrestrained as they looked. Zhang Guangyi flew fast all the way, only stopping when he arrived at the place. Where? In the sea? Zhang Guangyu asked. There's a stone house at the bottom of the sea, let's go there. Okay. Zhang Guangyu nodded, his soul sense came out of his body and went into the sea. The sea water was deep and blue as they went deeper and deeper, and then boundless darkness reigned, which would make people involuntarily feel depressed. Not even martial artists were absolutely safe in front of nature. Space cracks and energy hurricanes happened occasionally in the ancient mine, but in the mortal world, except for relics, it was relatively calm. They went deep into the sea. Zhang Guangyu soon found the stone house, but the entrance was no longer there, and there was no energy to maintain it. But this was a very simple matter for Zhang Guangyu. He went into the room and took out a few crystal stones to set up the array. When the sea water was slowly pressed out, he took out a light gem and the stone house became bright. Breakthrough, I'll protect you. Zhang Guangyu looked at Zhang Han sitting on the ground and smiled. I'll adjust my breath first and break through directly later. It'll take about a day, Zhang Han said and closed his eyes slowly. His chaotic breath gradually became stable. They couldn't feel the passage of time there, but in fact, more than 3 hours had passed since Zhang Han began to calm his qi. Puff. Suddenly, there was a breeze. The thunder yang pellet appeared in Zhang Han's chest and slowly entered his body. Sizzle, sizzle. Zhang Han's qi suddenly changed. Several electric currents were diffused on the surface of Zhang Han's body, constantly flashing, and a trace of profound qi emerged. Huh? Zhang Guangyu was stunned. Wasn't the medicinal pellet meant to be eaten? Aren't all medicinal pellets made to be eaten? How did he make it pass straight through his chest? Zhang Guangyu was a little shocked. He had never seen such an occurrence. Zhang Han's qi was more and more oppressive. Aside from the faint sound of an electric current, the whole stone house was relatively quiet. Zhang Guangyu looked at the surroundings for a while and found that nothing was out of the ordinary, so he was relieved. But it was just then. Boom. A thundering sound was heard throughout the stone house. Zhang Guangyu was scared. What's going on? He frowned slightly in confusion. He wasn't surprised by the noise, because there were many people who made louder noise when they broke through to the divine realm. But Zhang Han had just taken the pill, and it wasn't the time for him to make such a noise. Boom. Another thunder burst out from Zhang Han's body. Boom. Every once in a while there would be a thunder, and the interval was getting shorter and shorter. Every time the noise came out, Zhang Han's qi became more abundant. Is he going to break through that soon? Zhang Guangyu was a little suspicious. He thought the noise was a sign of a breakthrough. That wasn't the case. In the beginning, there would be a thunderbolt every 3 minutes. Gradually, the time was shortened to 2.5 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, 50 seconds, 40 seconds, 30 seconds, 10 seconds, 5 seconds, 1 second, 0.5 seconds, 0.1 second. The process lasted 5 or 6 hours. In the last hour, the thunder was very intense. It sounded like a machine gun. Boom, 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 boom. The thunder continued to explode in Zhang Han's body. At the same time, Zhang Han's qi was surging violently. Zhang Guangyu was stunned. What's going on? In this way, the dense thunder sound lasted for 3 hours. Buzz. All of a sudden, a violent wave of energy was formed above them. Huh? Zhang Guangyu looked at Zhang Han and then flew out. What a powerful energy. Is someone of the Wind Snow School here? He was taken aback by his own ideas. He quickly hid his body and qi, and even stopped detecting with soul sense to swim up quickly. But when he swam up for hundreds of meters, poop, his body came out of the water. Seeing the picture in front of him, Zhang Guangyu was confused. Did he only swim for a few hundred meters and got out of a sea thousands of meters deep? No, it wasn't that he had emerged from the sea, but he saw a huge whirlpool spinning in front of him. The gap was as high as several kilometers, with a diameter of nearly 1 kilometer. The surrounding sea water rotated rapidly. Judging from the speed, if a yacht was thrown in, it would be crushed in an instant. Boom. The sound of thunder came from the sky. Zhang Guangyu raised his head in confusion. The sky was full of dark clouds and thunder, as if the end of the world was coming. Is this the result of my son's breakthrough? Hiss. Zhang Guangyu took a breath in astonishment. How could this happen? He couldn't understand why breaking through to the divine realm would cause such a horrifying effect. Thunder in a vortex thousands of meters deep was too weird. What was going on? The wonderful image of heaven and earth. Ha ha ha, my son's breakthrough is earth-shaking. This kind of scene is close to that of the God Realm peak stage. In the martial arts world, when someone was breaking through, strange phenomena between heaven and earth would take place. That is, the force pulling heaven and earth, forming a majestic energy and mingling with the powers of heaven and earth. This kind of breakthrough was only possible when a Grand Master was making a breakthrough to the divine realm. As was known to the whole martial arts world, there was a barrier between the Grand Master stage and the divine realm stage. Except for the most common breakthroughs, there would always be some fluctuations. When the fluctuation was strong enough, strange phenomena would appear between the heaven and earth. But Zhang Guangyu had never heard of such a terrible phenomenon between heaven and earth. No wonder he didn't break through at Mount New Moon. If he were there, the whole mountain would have been ruined. Zhang Guangyu shook his head, and his eyes were filled with excitement. The vortex was still expanding and pressing down. There was more and more thunder in the sky. It was the power of heaven. Whoosh! Zhang Guangyu flew higher and moved hundreds of meters to the side. Looking from that vantage point, he found the scene was even more shocking, because the dark clouds, which were round and constantly rotating, seemed to form a certain balance with the massive eddies in the sea. A lot of energy filled the sky and the earth, vaguely forming a storm. Crack! A crisp sound seemed to come from all directions. He saw that the vortex had begun to circle around the bottom of the sea. He even noticed that a huge whale, while wandering in the nearby waters, was pulled by the suction and fell into the vortex. In a moment, it turned into blood mist. Boom! A dull sound was made at the bottom of the sea, and a strong wave communicated with heaven and earth. The top of the stone house had disappeared, revealing Zhang Han's body. He sat at the bottom of the vortex, both his chi and blood were surging. Boom! In a flash, thousands of thunders were condensed into a stream, turning into a massive thunder that struck down. It hit Zhang Han. At this moment, thunder seemed to have turned into a bridge, transmitting the overwhelming energy from the air to Zhang Han. At the same time, Zhang Han's body was changing. The meridians in his body became more and more condensed. The cracks in his danshan were mended at this moment, and his 10 inches danshan began to change. There was a layer of light surrounding it, so that the spiritual force passing by his danshan field was constantly compressed as if it were a river instead of a gas. After breaking through to the innateness stage, the spiritual force would be enhanced more than several times. The biggest change took place in Zhang Han's soul sense sea. The clouds began to pour down at this moment. Buzz, buzz, buzz. After Zhang Han stopped suppressing the thunder clouds, more than 10,000 thunder clouds were gathered and turned black in an instant. The T-wood thunder kept flashing. The raindrop of soul sense began. Clatter. It seemed that there was a torrential rain continuously watering and covering his soul sense sea. The water on that piece of land gradually gathered into small pools, lakes, and finally like a turbulent sea. Zhang Han was aware of the scene. There was a little smile on his face. His soul sense sea was as good as the one he had when he was at the peak of the innateness stage. However, what Zhang Han didn't expect was that after his soul sense sea was filled, the thunder had yet to stop. Boom! There was only thunder, no lightning. Zhang Han was confused. What's going on? According to the natural law, the thunder should fuse with raindrops to form a property of endless or pure wood thunder. The greatest benefit, he thought, should be the restoration of his soul sense, helping him surpass ordinary people. But he didn't expect that the T-wood thunder didn't fuse with the raindrops. Is there some trouble? Am I going to keep suppressing the thunder? As the raindrops fell, the thundercloud did not subside. It even became stronger, as if there were some monsters inside. Zhang Han was not sure about this. After all, he had not encountered this situation before. A 10 inches danshan and 10,000 thunderclouds above his soul sense sea. There was something strange about it. Forget it, just break through. At this time, Zhang Han had already entered the innateness stage and was preparing to absorb the final energy and ease the fluctuations. However, boom! In the sky, the huge thunder, accompanied by the rolling clouds, came down and struck Zhang Han's body. At the same time, above Zhang Han's soul sense sea, thunderclouds and dark clouds, the T-wood thunder and the thunder of the outside world echoed each other from afar, as if they were linked, rioting at the same time. There was a big explosion in Zhang Han's soul sense sea. Boom! Zhang Han's consciousness suddenly fell into chaos. Clatter! The vortices in the sea dissipated, and the high vortex of several thousand meters was filled up in an instant. Hundreds of meters of sea waves were sweeping away in all directions. Big tsunami. At last the breakthrough is over. Zhang Wangyu swallowed while still floating in the air, looking excited. He waited for 1 minute. Why hasn't he come up yet? Zhang Wangyu was stunned. Another minute later, he frowned and went into the sea. All the way down, he saw that the stone house had been destroyed. He sensed Zhang Han, who was sitting on the ruins. Whoosh! He went there quickly, trying to pull Zhang Han up. Zhang Han suddenly opened his eyes, which seemed like small lightnings. In a flash, they illuminated a 1 kilometer radius. Let's go! Zhang Wangyu pulled up Zhang Han, bursting out of the water and floating in the air. Then he smiled. Are you at the God Realm late stage or the peak stage now? After hearing Zhang Wengyu's words, Zhang Han slightly regained his mind and shook his head numbly. No. Let's go back first. After 2 days, I don't know what may be happening over there. It's just that, after the breakthrough, you may be unable to control your chi well. How can't I sense you? Ah? Zhang Han was stunned again. He pondered for a second, and then replied, maybe I have accumulated a lot. Ha ha ha, okay, let's go back soon. Zhang Guanyu burst into laughter and flew towards the north with Zhang Han. All the way, Zhang Han was a little absent-minded, with disbelief and doubt in his eyes. What's going on? Zhang Han tried to feel his soul sense see. Oh, no. His soul sense sea had been blown up and there was only a lightning mark there, a tiny lightning. What's this? Where is my soul sense sea? How could Zhang Han not be shocked in this situation? Every immortal cultivator's soul sense sea could transform into spiritual sense and make progress step by step. But his soul sense sea was gone. How could he cultivate in the future? Do I have to stop at the God transformation stage all my life? Or could I surpass the God transformation stage? Zhang Han thought the latter was most likely. Buzz! His spiritual sense was as fast as lightning. No, it was really lightning. It was extremely fast and it expanded outwards. It covered 10 miles, 20 miles, and soon broke the previous 30-mile record. Then it easily expanded to 35 miles, 40 miles, 50 miles, and didn't stop until it reached 100 miles. In the earthly air, it can reach 100 miles. Is this the thunder soul sense? No, it's because I have absorbed the T-wood thunder. This. Zhang Han though for a moment, and suddenly his face changed. Dad. Do you feel my spiritual sense energy? What soul sense? I don't feel it. Zhang Guanyu shook his head slightly. Zhang Han's eyes brightened slightly. Most people could be sensed more or less when they were using their soul senses. It was difficult for them to hide their soul sense unless they used secret methods. However, Zhang Han didn't use anything and his father was still unable to notice it. This effect was a little more powerful. Silent investigation or the use of secret methods could always give his enemies a fatal blow. Not bad. Zhang Han narrowed his eyes slightly. He took back his soul sense, turned his head and looked at Zhang Guangyu with a smile. Dad, let's compare our speed. Ouch. Zhang Guangyu laughed. You boy, don't think your wings will be hard right after you break through to the divine realm. Even if you were at the earth realm, you still can't defeat me in speed. Your father is close to reaching earth peak stage at least. Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhang Guangyu broke through the sound barrier in an instant and flew forward quickly. Ha ha ha. He didn't finish his proud words. Boom. A louder sound came out, and a figure seemed to flash by. Then, Zhang Guangyu's words could not go on. With his soul sense fully activated, he caught the flash figure, and his eyes widened slowly. Is it true? Chapter 757, pointing at the 7 Harmony World. What's going on? Speed, too fast, 5 times the speed of sound in an instant? This. Zhang Guangyu was stunned. 5 times the speed of sound was so fast that Zhang Guangyu felt it was incredible. Ordinary martial artists at Divine Realm couldn't be as fast as sound. Only gifted people, like Shi Fenwu, could break through the sound barrier when they reached the Grandmaster stage. However, Zhang Guangyu felt that those who reached Divine Realm could never be as fast as 5 times the sound. It made sense that the faster the martial artist was, the harder they were to be blocked. Even if they were escaping, this speed could make some people feel a headache. When thinking about it, Zhang Guangyu grinned. Upon seeing Zhang Han stop in the distance ahead, he flew over and looked at his son, who was calm as usual. It's not your limit, is it? Of course not. Zhang Han laughed. His chi was calm and natural, giving Zhang Guangyu a mysterious and profound sensation. Zhang Guangyu was a little surprised. Are you at the middle stage or last stage? The scene was so frightening just now that I thought you were breaking through into the peak stage. Zhang Han was slightly stunned and hesitated. It's of no use to measure me with the level of martial arts. Maybe I'm now at the early stage of innateness and very close to the middle stage. His breakthrough was very successful. His 10 inches danshan remained and there was no reduction due to the breakthrough. The former situation was that the 9 inches danshan appeared in the foundation stage would turn into 8 inches, 7 inches, and 6 inches at foundation stage, elixir stage, and yuan ying stage, respectively. During this period, the martial artist could continuously absorb and strengthen themselves so that their danshan could be maintained at 9 inches. However, his danshan was 10 inches at the beginning, and still 10 inches after the breakthrough. But his spiritual force, as magnificent as a river, was much better than before. A person would remain mortal until they reached the innateness stage. Now, Zhang Han had a foothold, enough to make him despise the world. But Zhang Guangyu didn't understand this. He was very excited when he heard Zhang Han's words. Is that the God Realm peak stage? Ha ha ha, great. As soon as my son broke through, you reached the God Realm peak stage directly and will soon be promoted to Earth Realm. You are less than 30 years old. In the future, you will surely reach Heaven Realm and even surpass me. How wonderful it is. Zhang Han was a little speechless after hearing his words. I took great pains to gather 10,000 thunder clouds. After breaking through, my soul sense dissipated and became a mark of thunder. It was T-wood thunder, which belongs to me now. I married Xian and got an opportunity to promote my danshan to 10 inches, which was amazing even in the cultivation world. How can my father regard me as just at God Realm peak stage? Zhang Han's mouth trembled slightly. After thinking about it, he didn't say anything. What if he told his father, you are no longer my opponent now? His father would be upset. Let's go back first. Meng is waiting for us, Zhang Han said with a smile, as he was eager to return home. When he thought of Meng, the corners of his mouth rose unconsciously. He missed his daughter and believed that she and Xian also missed him. After dealing with these things, it's time to accompany her. Zhang Han had not enjoyed the two people's world with Xian for some time. Although she had never complained, Sometimes her twinkling eyes also showed her desire to be accompanied by Zhang Han. "Let's go." Zhang Wenyu flew forward at full speed, but Zhang Han felt he was a little slow. "Dad, you carried me all the way, shall I carry you now?" Zhang Han laughed. "No." Zhang Wenyu laughed. "Your father is not aged, I'm only slower than you." Ha 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 ha. Zhang Han laughed and waved his left hand. A ray of sunlight covered him and Zhang Wenyu. Now their speed was so fast that they even turned into light. It took them more than 3 hours to come and half an hour to go back. It was just beginning to dawn. Originally, they wanted to go back to Mount New Moon to have a look, and then go directly to the Cultivation World. But an unexpected visitor was now at Mount New Moon, Wang Xiao. He was under the Thunder Sun tree with an impatient look on his face. When he saw the two men, he quickly stood up and ran toward them. "Why did you come?" Zhang Wenyu frowned slightly and had a premonition of something, but he did not expect that the severity of the matter was beyond his imagination. "Young master, Wind Snow School fought with Wu Ming sect for an hour that day and found out the identity of our young lord. They sent someone to unite the 7 sects, including Caprice Mo sect, Limitless sect, 7 Ming Abyss, and 10 Tigers sect. They gathered 80 Heaven Realm martial artists, 200 Earth Realm martial artists and hundreds of men at Divine Realm, who were attacking our sect. The crystal consumption is too fast, and we only have 1 month based on our storage reserves. Now the third elder is going to the ancient mine with some disciples, but crystal stones are rare, and their speed is much slower than the consumption of the Heaven-Earth formation. However hard they try, we only have 2 months. I came out with the Supreme Elder's token, and he asked me to find you and discuss with you." Wang Xiao felt depressed while talking about it. "The first elder asked me to talk with you about the evacuation, Heavenly Knights sect. We can't keep it. The only way is to rely on the government. If they don't accept it, we'll have to go down to the ancient mine to find a way out." This. Zhang Wenyu's face suddenly darkened. 8 sects? Caprice Mo sect has never been involved in this kind of thing. How can 7 Ming Abyss participate in it? They attack Heavenly Knights sect together. When the wall is about to fall, everyone will push it, right? Good, very good, excellent. His hands trembled and his face turned pale. He was well aware of the seriousness of the matter. Even the Grand Elder wanted to leave. It could be imagined that if he stuck to Heavenly Knights sect, he would end up dead. If there was only Wind Snow School, it wouldn't matter at all, because they couldn't win the battle, and Dong Chen would lead all the disciples to fight back. However, 8 sects came at once, which made them feel depressed and even angrier. But the fact couldn't be changed. No matter what mood they were in, they had to face it. Zhang Guangyu was very angry and helpless. He said in a trembling voice, "Xian, go to Shangjing City and find the warlord of Chan clan. Ask him to discuss with the official to see whether they can accept us. However helpless we are, we have to try. We, Heavenly Knights sect." Before his words were finished, Zhang Han, who had been pondering for a few seconds, opened his mouth. "Dad, do you still have crystal stones now?" "Huh?" Zhang Guangyu was confused. "Yes. That's okay, Xian. Go back and tell the whole Heavenly Knights sect that within 1 day, the 8 forces will withdraw." "What do you mean?" Wang Xiao asked in confusion. "Retreat in a day? Really? Is this possible?" "It's impossible." Wang Xiao laughed bitterly to himself. "Don't ask why, just do it. Go ahead." Zhang Han waved his hand. Seeing this, Zhang Wenyu pondered and suddenly his eyes brightened. "Do you mean to use that method? But, can it work?" "Yes." When he got a positive answer, Zhang Wenyu shook his head slightly. "Do you want to wait for Uncle Dong?" "No, we'll do it." "Okay, let's go." Wang Xiao was confused by their conversation. When he was about to ask something, Zhang Wenyu gave him an order. "Xian, go back to Heavenly Knights sect and tell them that the enemy will withdraw within 3 days. He didn't say the same thing as Zhang Han because he thought that 1 day was not enough. "Yes." Wang Xiao knew the seriousness of the matter, and did not talk nonsense. He directly turned and flew into the air, and his figure slowly disappeared. "Where shall we go first?" Zhang Guangyu asked. After hearing Zhang Han's question about the crystal stones, he knew that Zhang Han planned to attack the rear of Wind Snow School with his formation-breaking skills. All the Heaven State Strongs of Wind Snow School had left their sect except for those guarding the main sect, but there couldn't be higher-level martial artists guarding the subsect except for several men at Earth Realm, who couldn't defeat Zhang Guangyu or fight at the gate of Heavenly Knight's sect. If they dared to fight, well, there was still a month to go and they could have a try. Zhang Guangyu suddenly felt the pressure on his shoulder doubled, because he was bearing the survival of the whole Heavenly Knight's sect. "Let's go," Zhang Guangyu said in a low voice, full of fighting spirit. The main sect of Wind Snow School is located in the southeast Saint Serene World and has always been guarded by high-level martial artists, so I don't want to choose this place. The subsects in the northeast Mystical Martial World and the southwest Witch Hidden World have a relatively strong Heaven-Earth formation, while the subsect in the northwest Seven Harmony World is relatively weak, and King Zenzi should be there. As long as he doesn't reach Heaven Realm, I will try to kill him and dissolve the poison curse of your mother. Take me there. Since I have been gathering my energy, when we arrive at the place, you can break the formation with your secret technique behind me, and I'll protect you. Zhang Han was slightly stunned but did not say anything. I'm actually fighting. After thinking about it, he decided to wait until they arrived at the destination. Let's go. Zhang Han and Zhang Guangyu flew into the air and flew inland with great speed. While flying all the way, the consumption was very large, but these were within Zhang Han's tolerance. They want me to go back a day late. A cold light flashed through Zhang Han's eyes. Originally, he did not want to pay attention to them, but they took the initiative to challenge him. While flying all the way, to half the distance, Zhang Han's inner spiritual force left only 30%. Dad. Crystal stones. Zhang Guangyu took out 100 pieces of high-quality crystal stones. Zhang Han directly crushed 10 pieces of them, quickly absorbed them, and instantly restored 90% of his spiritual force. It was very luxurious. This high-speed absorption wasted at least 30% of the energy. But Zhang Han didn't care. Wind Snow School also had crystal stones and treasures, and he could rob them. In the remaining half of the journey, when they reached a mountain range, Zhang Han crushed 10 stones again, absorbed them quickly, and recovered to more than 80%. The energy of crystal stones couldn't be absorbed endlessly, and the effect would decrease sharply. 80% was enough for Zhang Han. The main hall on the top of the mountain should be the entrance to the Seven Harmony World. Zhang Guangyu pointed out that the hall was brand new, and there were some people guarding it, who served the government. When they reached the top of the mountain, they found a small whirlpool standing in the hall. Instead of pausing, they flashed in. In this way, the father and son duo of Heavenly Knight's sect entered the Seven Harmony World. No one was aware of it. Chapter 758, Deviating from the Script. In front of us is the subsect of Wind Snow School in Seven Harmony World. While looking at the front mountain range, Zhang Guangyu said slowly, this was Magic Sword Villa. Because the leader of the villa had a feud with the 9th elder of Wind Snow School, they were soon destroyed by Wind Snow School and replaced by a Heaven-Earth formation as a subsect of Wind Snow School. The expansion of Wind Snow School is extremely rapid, but there was a defect because the strength of their higher-level martial artists is not enough. If all the people in the subsects went to the main sect, their high-level martial artists will be powerful, but their subsects will be weak. It's normal. Zhang Han shook his head slightly. The strength of a sect will increase with time. Their subsects cover the other 4 worldlets, and for a long time, the number of their disciples will double. The growth of generations is bound to double the overall strength and improve the strength of Wind Snow School. Given 30 or 50 more years, they are likely to become the strongest sect. Unfortunately, they met me. Zhang Guangyu was stunned and amused. Son, Don't be too proud. No matter how well you break through, you are at the God Realm peak stage. You have not grown up yet. After reminding him, Zhang Wangyu said with a smile, your secret method that can break the heaven and earth array is really powerful. This time, let's go in that way, right? Yes. Zhang Han nodded without explanation. When he reached the heaven-earth formation of Wind-Snow School, he took out 18 crystal stones, combined them with 18 cards, and turned them into a magic array. Then, he began to drill the heaven-earth formation. There were 5 peaks in the front sect with a high mountain in the center and 4 lower peaks in the other 4 directions. There were many buildings on the peaks, and lots of people were gathering to discuss. Did you hear that? Wind-Snow School, launched a general attack on Heavenly Knights sect. The first elder found 7 sects, and they are attacking at the gate of Heavenly Knights sect. I've also heard that 8 sects have joined hands. Our first elder has spent a lot of energy on it. This time Heavenly Knights sect will die. The war that has lasted for decades is finally coming to an end. Unfortunately, it will not be so easy for us to earn mission points in the future. After all, anyone who kills a disciple of Heavenly Knights sect will get some rewards. Heavenly Knights sect has also attacked us several times, but they didn't even enter the gate. Ha ha ha. It could be imagined that the topics they talked about were all about Wind-Snow Schools launching the attack. Most of these disciples were at Grandmaster late stage or peak, and almost all the Divine Realm cultivators had gone to the Cultivation World. There were not many masters left behind, and all the disciples were relaxed in their own sect. They felt stressful when going out to complete missions or to the ancient mines, while the heaven-earth formation in their own sect set their mind at rest. They were in the dark about the upcoming crisis. It didn't take long to break the array. In about 1 minute, a gap appeared in the heaven-earth formation. Zhang Wengyu's face became more and more dignified. It's just a gap. That means that after we enter it, the heaven-earth formation will recover and make a loud noise. Then it will be difficult for me to come out, but for the honor of Heavenly Knights sect, I must take the risk this time. I'm shouldering the whole Heavenly Knights sect, and I can't fail. King Zenzi should be here, along with some of his protectors. It's difficult. Zhang Wengyu's eyes flickered slightly, as if he was calculating something. When the gap appeared, he said, son, you stay here, and I'll go in and kill the enemies. I don't want to destroy this place, but I want to wreak havoc here. Time, half an hour. After half an hour, you can cast a spell to open the heaven-earth formation, and then hide somewhere. If I come out, you can take me to escape. If I can't come out. When speaking of this, Zhang Guangyu was somewhat sad, but more resolute. If I can't come out, I believe Heavenly Knights sect will get better and better under your leadership. Remember to avenge your father. Whoosh. After that, Zhang Guangyu patted Zhang Han on the shoulder. Though looking sad, he did not hesitate before entering the gap. This. Zhang Han was amused and shook his head. It's not what you think, Dad. You think too much. Whoosh. Zhang Han flashed into the gap. Zhang Wengyu's face changed. What are you doing? Get out of here. Well, Dad, it's time to show you my real strength. I've said that the ranking of martial arts stage is useless to me, Zhang Han said with a light smile, and then suddenly rose into the air. Zhang Guangyu was a little angry, because Zhang Han didn't cherish his life. However, he soon found that his son's expression was calm and indifferent. 5 mountains. Killing one by one is too complicated, so I'll kill one of them first, Zhang Han said calmly. At the same time, he made a heavy step with his right foot. Crack. A faint shadow of the mountain was formed from the low mountain on the north side. There was weak current on the shadow, which was constantly rotating to form a complex soul-swallowing storm. The coverage of his spiritual force was not enough to kill all the people in the mountain, but how could these people at the Grand Master stage resist his soul sense? Boom! A huge roar rang through the whole sect area. The North Mountain was smashed down, and the trees, buildings, and streams were all destroyed. It seemed as if an energy storm was killing all things. Huh? Zhang Guangyu was stunned. The coverage of this attack was too great. This was different from the script he had imagined. It should be him sneaking in, assassinating someone, fighting in the last few minutes, and then running away. The whole set of procedures flashed in Zhang Wengyu's mind more than 10 times, but Zhang Han destroyed a mountain at the beginning, and then he would face all the others. In fact, it was so. This scene made all the people who were chatting, eating, practicing in close quarters, and learning from each other, shocked, looking at the destroyed North Mountain. They didn't know what had happened. No, something's wrong. Go to the main mount. What is the situation? What's going on? What happened? A lot of people were in disarray, as they couldn't believe what was happening in their sect. Who am I? Where am I? They thought. But they still followed the crowd and made their way quickly to the main mount. At the same time, King Zhenzi, who was cultivating the backyard of the main mount hall, suddenly opened his eyes with a little doubt flashing in them. Then, he was shocked and finally became angry. Gather in the main mount. His voice reverberated throughout the sect. There were 3 Earth Realm Protectors, 30 Divine Realm Protectors, and countless Grand Masters here. He knew that they might have encountered an enemy, but he could not understand it. How could the enemy appear in the sect? He was worried about the unknown situation, but he still had to face it. Thus, he planned to gather his disciples and check the situation first. Many figures flew into the air on the north side of the main mountain. On that mountain forest, more disciples gathered to watch the 2 men floating above the North Mountain. They were in the face of great enemies. King Zhenzi was stunned after seeing Zhang Wengyu, and then there was a cold flash in his eyes. At this time, Zhang Wengyu felt a little dizzy. He wanted to pull Zhang Han away, but Zhang Han didn't listen to him. Well, no matter how dangerous the situation is, we will have a try. Zhang Wengyu sighed, because he sensed the heaven state strongs. That's enough, Zhang Han said in a low voice. He meant that the people on the other side were almost gathered. Thus, he sped up, flew over, and floated in the air 500 meters away from those disciples. Looking at hundreds of people in front of him, he said faintly, "Who is King Zhenzi?" Huh? In a flash, everyone of Wind Snow School were angry. King Zhenzi sneered, "I'm King Zhenzi." Then he gave Zhang Wengyu a cold look. "Zhang Wengyu, young master of Heavenly Knights sect, how dare you come here? You're really tired of living. Can't you Heavenly Knights sect resist us? Were you sent here to disturb us? It's a joke." King Zhenzi said and waved to the disciples of the sect to surround them. Zhang Wengyu's face was dignified. When he was about to say something, Zhang Han raised his hand and looked at King Zhenzi with a cold look. He said slowly, "Those who hurt my parents should be killed." Zhang Han raised his right hand up and then pressed down. At this time, many people in Wind Snow School sneered. The young master of Heavenly Knights sect didn't speak, and no one dared to interrupt him. King Zhenzi looked up and laughed. "Do you deserve it, eh?" He couldn't speak anymore. Even the smile on his face froze and his pupils shrank sharply. Buzz! In the highest sky, a sharp sound came out, like the sound of sharpening a knife, which made everyone tremble physically and mentally. The power of countless stars were drawn by an unknown force and gathered into a giant silver palm. The palm was very long, with dense lines on it. A horrible force was shaking everything at its mercy. It was Zhang Han's unique skill, star-picking palm. It was not until Zhang Han reached the innateness stage that he had the capital and strength to show this skill. A trace of solemnity flashed in King Zhenzi's eyes, but his words were unforgiving. "How dare you play the trick in front of me? Look at me, I can break all your tricks with one move." Suddenly, a long sword appeared in his hand. After 2 seconds, the attacking sword turned into sharp light rushing upwards. This was one of the 32 secret methods of Wind Snow School, which ranked the top 5 in difficulty. Few people could master it completely, but even beginners could make powerful moves and block higher-level martial artists. Seeing this move, many of the disciples were shocked. Protector Chi is amazing. Protector King is so powerful. He was among the top 3 talents in the last generation. Now, he has grown to such a high level. It seems that they can't defeat Protector King at all. Even the other Earth Realm protectors shook their heads slightly. It's amazing that King Zhenzi has reached such a level. I'm afraid that in a few days, he will reach Heaven Realm. It's very powerful. He will be the Lord Earth Tiger in 7 Harmony World. Maybe, he will make a breakthrough in this battle. After all, Zhang Guangyu is powerful, and I feel that the probability is 80%. Zhang Guangyu can help with the breakthrough of Protector King in the battle. They were a little surprised. They were of the same generation, but King Zhenzi's speed of cultivation was much faster. However, they seemed to forget the huge palm that came from the sky. Just when everyone thought that the sword could easily break the move. Go die. Zhang Han's eyes lit up. The original tall star-picking palm kept shrinking, and finally it was 33 meters in length. But its energy had increased hundreds of times, and its speed had also been raised to the extreme. The terrible pressure shocked everyone. Boom! A loud sound echoed, and the sword light was crushed in a moment. At the same time, the star-picking hand hit King Zhenzi, who wanted to retreat, and pressed into the mountain, leaving a palm print of up to 100 meters in depth. As for King Zhenzi, he seemed to have disappeared. In a flash, all the onlookers fell into a dead silence. Chapter 759, Trophies. To use star-picking palm, Zhang Han should absorb the essence of heaven, earth, sun, and moon, and borrow the power of stars. This powerful move was finally displayed by Zhang Han, who was now at the innateness stage. The effect was remarkable. Even the powerful man like King Zhenzi was beaten into nothingness by this slap. At that moment, Zhang Guangyu, several other Earth Realm martial artists of Wind Snow School, a few Divine Realm martial artists, and a large number of disciples at the Grand Master stage were all stunned and couldn't believe it. No one could have thought that King Zhenzi, who was the most powerful in the subsect of Wind Snow School and was about to break through into Heaven Realm, could not even block the palm of this strange young man, and was killed like a fly. The other Earth Realm martial artists in the sect were pale. They knew that King Zhenzi was extremely strong, be it in terms of his methods, cultivation, secret skills, and other factors. Even if he couldn't defeat that young man, this battle should not have ended that fast. What was that palm? In the whole Wind Snow School, King Zhenzi was excellent. He was only one step away from Heaven Realm and had mastered more than 10 kinds of secret methods. It was a pity that he was defeated in this way without even a chance to fight back. What was that young man's level? Heaven Realm, peak. What a terrible palm. What's the secret method? It's too powerful. Is he my son? He destroyed a martial artist at Heaven Realm with just one palm. Isn't that to say, I can't defeat my son at all? All of a sudden, Zhang Guangyu felt both surprised and worried, not knowing how to protect his son. He is at Divine Realm and can destroy someone at Earth Peak stage with just one hand. I'm afraid he is the first person to do that in history. What he said is right, we can't value him according to the martial arts level. Zhang Guangyu suddenly felt unhappy. Why did he suddenly become so strong, and why didn't he prepare me for this shocking fact? I was so desperate before, but what I said was nonsense. After 10 seconds of silence, many disciples in the subsect of Wind Snow School were in a panic. Protector King is dead. We are finished. How can we resist the enemies? Even Protector Chi couldn't defeat them. My God, Lord Sky Dragon and Lord Earth Tiger should not have left. The young man who spoke was sad. He knew that in the face of such a strong man, it was useless to run now. Now the fleeing people might be targeted by the other side, and they could only wait for the other protectors at Earth Realm to fight with the other side and get a chance to escape in the chaos. But would the Earth Realm martial artists on their side fight? If they chose to flee, they would be the victims. One of the protectors was a little flustered. He stared at Zhang Han and asked, "Who are you?" He is so young. Who is he? Is he from Heavenly Knight's sect? No, no, no. There is no such talented young disciple in Heavenly Knight's sect. He has just killed someone at Earth Peak stage. King Zenzi was the strongest cultivator at present, while the other cultivators were only at the last stage of Earth Realm. If he is not from Heavenly Knight's sect, is he the disciple of Black White Palace? Thinking of this possibility, the Protector felt like falling into an ice cave. When the disciples of Black White Palace came out, they were always invincible. Every time they appeared, the other young martial artists of the same generation would become their foil. But they hadn't heard of someone from Black White Palace killing cultivators at Earth Peak stage as soon as they left their sect. What's going on? Who am I? Zhang Han shook his head slightly. You don't need to know. All of a sudden, Zhang Han's chi surged. This was the signal that Zhang Han wanted to fight. At that moment, the Protector at Earth Realm roared, "Run! Run to report it to the Elder!" Clatter. In an instant, these people fled wildly in all directions. Zhang Guangyu was surprised. Kill them. Just as he was about to move, he suddenly sensed the chi of Zhang Han beside him. Thus, he stopped. He had heard that Zhang Han was very proficient in the moves that covered a wide area. I'm not a soul consumer, but I'm using the forbidden spells to make a command. Summon the souls of monsters and elves. Summon the souls of the unknown dead. Summon the souls wandering in the underworld. Along with Zhang Han's murmur, the ethereal voice spread through the whole sect. Gradually, a wisp of blood mist floated from Zhang Han's forehead. It seemed slow, but the whole process took less than 3 seconds. He made the gesture of casting, and suddenly opened his eyes. With my blood at innateness stage, I want blood shock Pluto incantation. Boom. All of a sudden, a red glow at the speed of thunder surrounded many disciples of Wind Snow School. At the beginning, Zhang Han had absorbed a lot of energy with the secret method, and then went to the Li family to perform this skill reluctantly, but now, Zhang Han had his own ability to use it. A person would remain mortal until they reached the innateness stage. Zhang Han had already bid farewell to his mortal body and really opened the road of cultivating. In Zhang Guangyu's dull eyes, the red light formed a circle. All the people inside were attacking constantly, but all those energies were gathered in the blood curtain. Thump, thump. The curtain of blood shrank sharply, then grew larger like a beating heart. This change was accompanied by mysterious and profound curse power. In the blood curtain, the bodies of all the Grand Masters withered at a speed visible to the naked eye, and their chi and blood were diffused. Thump, thump. Another heartbeat. The 1,000 strands of chi and blood penetrated into the body of the disciples at Divine Realm and sped up the flow of their chi and blood. It seemed as if the disciples at Divine Realm were fertilizer, which improved the others' chi and blood a lot. Thump, thump. The attack didn't stop. The third heartbeat echoed, and a huge amount of chi and blood rushed into the bodies of the Earth Realm cultivators. Their chi rose layer by layer, and those who were originally at Earth Peak stage were now at Earth Peak stage or Heaven Realm. Their bodies couldn't bear it because of the improvement of their cultivation. When chi and blood coursed through them, their bodies began to wither, including their souls. Dissipation. Zhang Han took a deep breath and waved his right hand slightly. The blood curtain slowly dispersed. Just now, there were hundreds of people on the top of the mountain. Now, there was no one but a palm print with a depth of 100 meters. All of them were killed in the battle, but Zhang Guangyu felt no pity. He was in a daze and lost his mind. After 2 seconds, he turned his head and looked at Zhang Han. We destroyed one of Wind Snow School's subsects. Well, it seemed that someone hadn't done anything from the beginning to the end. He didn't think so, though he wanted to. I see. Zhang Han nodded slightly, looked at Zhang Guangyu, and chuckled. Let's go and see our trophies. Okay. Zhang Guangyu laughed. Suddenly, 6 people ran to the outside world on both sides. He snorted coldly. I'll kill them. Zhang Han said with a bitter smile. I let them go on purpose. Huh? Zhang Guangyu was stunned for a moment. Then, He was relieved and patted Zhang Han on the shoulder. Leave a few informers to solve the Heavenly Knights sect crisis. You shocked me so much that I forgot about it. Let's see the trophies first. Zhang Wengyu's eyes brightened slightly. I never expected that we would destroy the subsect of Wind Snow School. I don't know where the formation eye of their Heaven-Earth formation is, but their crystal stones should be in the main mount. Let's go and see. Whoosh, whoosh. When they reached the main hall of the main mount, their soul sense moved and began to search every room. Finally, Zhang Han found a place that his soul sense couldn't enter. In a house in the backyard of the main hall, there was a basement. The entrance of the basement was blocked by the array. It seems that you need the token of Sky Dragon or Earth Tiger. If this array is broken by force, it will destroy everything in it. We also have this array in Heavenly Knights sect. If Heavenly Knights sect is occupied one day, we will never leave any treasure to the enemy. Sky Dragon and Earth Tiger are not here, otherwise, if they triggered their imprints, they would blow up this place and maybe the treasures here wouldn't be available. But even so, the medicine field in the back mountain is also a harvest. Zhang Wengyu's eyes were shining slightly. Even if he couldn't get the best treasure, there were still many resources in the medicine field. After hearing this, Zhang Han shook his head with a smile. This kind of array is easy to be broken. With a wave of his right hand, 5 crystal stones appeared. They were smashed and turned into thousands of silk threads, forming an array. They were continuously compressed and integrated with each other, and Zhang Han was able to control all this. The gate of the array opened directly. It took 10 seconds from the beginning to the end. Zhang Wengyu was confused. He swallowed his saliva and said dryly, "Can you break all arrays so easily?" "Not really." Zhang Han shook his head. Some of the real Heaven-Earth formations are complicated, but most people in the world do not understand the array. Zhang Wengyu looked serious after hearing the words. People in the world don't understand the array. How strong was Zhang Han to dare to speak like this? Generally speaking, Zhang Wengyu would say, "Well, don't be too confident, martial artists should be modest." But the evidence were in front of him. Heaven-Earth formations and treasure formations were nothing to Zhang Han. Zhang Wengyu was speechless. "Go in, there should be some treasure." Zhang Han smiled and entered. Inside was a hall with a radius of 1,000 meters. All kinds of cabinets were filled with treasures, but compared with the whole hall, only 1/5 of the cabinets were treasures. The most attractive was the red stone standing horizontally in the middle. Zhang Han's eyes slightly lit up. Array stone. I didn't expect that they had such a large array stone. They are all mine. With a smile, Zhang Wengyu took the lead in collecting the treasures. After a while, they counted the treasures. 1 large 5-level array stone, 230 medium-grade crystals, 9,000 low-grade crystals, 8 4th-stage spirit treasures, 23 4th-stage spirit treasures, and many kinds of materials. What a small fortune. Zhang Wengyu was happy due to the rich harvest. It's a pity that they wasted too many resources in order to refine the 6th-level spirit treasure. Zhang Han slightly shook his head. After they went out, Zhang Wengyu destroyed this place with one hand, and went to the medicinal field to pick up all kinds of miraculous herbs, leaving nothing behind him. When they finally wanted to leave, they bombarded the whole sect into ruins. Let's go, there's still time. Shall we go southwest or northeast? Zhang Wengyu asked with a smile. Our trip in the 7 Harmony world is not over yet. Well, what do you mean? Zhang Wengyu was confused. Under his gaze, Zhang Han calmly looked at the direction in the distance and said slowly, "There are still 7 other sects here." Chapter 760, Sweeping Clean. Zhang Wengyu frowned and remained silent for 2 seconds. Then he said, "I haven't heard that the other 7 sects have anything to do with Wind Snow School. I guess it must have cost Wind Snow School a lot to invite them here." Zhang Wengyu felt a little aggrieved and kept silent for a second before he continued. "If we destroy their sects, we will be enemies. No matter what Heavenly Knight's sect does in the future, we will face more enemies. He was also helpless, but this was the truth. He also wanted to fight adamantly, but he had to consider Heavenly Knight's sect. The other 7 sects were not small sects without strength. Although he knew that the other party would rule out the largest number of soldiers when they attacked the city, they would not leave enough Heaven Realm cultivators in their own sect because there was the Heaven-Earth formation, their last card. But no one had ever thought that Zhang Han would be such a freak. Although Zhang Guangyu was eager to do something, he didn't recommend it. For Heavenly Knight's sect, development was the key. His strength had regressed too much, and he needed time to bridge the gap between him and martial artists. It could be said that Zhang Guangyu had thought it clearly, but Zhang Han didn't think so. He just said lightly, they can be invited 2 times as long as there are enough interests. You don't need to worry about these kinds of sects, just destroy them, even if their masters return. Will they dare to attack Heavenly Knight's sect? They dared not. Who could give up their own sect to attack others, if there were too many people going, and the safety of their own back was unpredictable? If there were too few people going, they could do nothing in the war. Who could not have a headache in such a situation? The distribution of forces in the world should also change. Zhang Han smiled. In the era of the martial world, the sect leader could take the sect elders away at will, but from now on, they had to think it over, because the legend of the invincible Heaven-Earth formation was proved to be false. Of course, they didn't know that yet. Zhang Guangyu thought for a while and sighed. I planned to talk about martial arts with you out of the world lit. Because of the crisis in the past, I didn't dare to let you enter, and even your grandfather thought so. He didn't dare to meet you with his own identity, fearing that someone would pry into your memories. But my son is not a coward, and I want to cultivate you to be a martial artist. I didn't expect you to step on this road yourself. You are so powerful, which makes me feel a little depressed. Upon seeing that Zhang Han wanted to say something, Zhang Guangyu raised his hand and continued. But I'm happy at the same time. You're already stronger than me. Killing King Zenzi proved it, and I'm very proud of you. But I know a little more about Wind Snow School. The other 7 sects may send all their Heaven Realm disciples to challenge you. Tell me, what level are you at now? Zhang Guangyu looked serious. It was related to the safety of the 2 of them, so they had to be cautious. I see. Zhang Han thought for a while and said, Heaven early stage cultivators will escape when they see me, while middle stage cultivators have the ability to fight with me. I may not defeat last stage cultivators, and I have to escape when I encounter peak stage cultivators. I have just broken through and haven't learned more methods or cultivated my supernatural power yet, but there is still no problem for me to escape. He had just broken through and needed to stabilize his realm. Besides, Zhang Han knew a lot of secret techniques, such as Pluto incantation, divine walking trick, secret disappearance, and so on. There were many methods providing him with too many choices. Unfortunately, treasure searching formulas only helped him in the aspect of invisibility and speed, and some practical arrays could also achieve the purpose of invisibility. As for his treasure sniffing nose, it was like a dog's nose. Zhang Han had long thought of teaching Little Hai this supernatural power. He had thought that when he was searching for treasures with Little Hai, it would be a little shameful for him to act like a dog. After thinking for a while, he decided to give the dog nose to the dog. He had better plans and would take actions. Although I was strong in the past, I was too weak to fight against the divine thunder over the sky, and it was too late after I learned the high-end cultivation methods in supernatural power. I will start all over again. The 10 inches Danshan and the Thunder Seal Soul Sense are incredibly strong. The opportunity must be in my hands. Zhang Han shook his head and stopped thinking about it. He had already thought about it and had a plan, but he had to wait for the proper time. Now, he had something else to do. Zhang Guangyu was astonished to hear what Zhang Han said. You mean you can defeat Heaven early stage cultivators? What about the middle stage? Can you defeat them? As for those at the middle stage of Heaven Realm, It depends on their real strength. I'm confident in at least beating them away, Zhang Han replied. Gulp. Zhang Guangyu was stunned. 3 seconds later, a hint of excitement flashed across his face. Let's do it. Let's go. Capricemo sect and Limitless sect are in the 7 Harmony world. They are not very powerful, and there are only 3 or 4 Heaven Realm cultivators in each sect. This time, since they planned to attack Heavenly Knight's sect, I guess that they must have taken even the Earth Realm cultivators with them. Although they are evil, we should keep them alive. This time, we can just grab their treasure tower, Zhang Wangyu said to Zhang Han while flying northwest. He planned to give them a warning that they should not stand out after the withdrawal of the troops. After all, there were only a few high-level masters. It could also be seen that Wind Snow School was very powerful. There were nearly 20 cultivators at the Heaven Realm in total. In other sects, there were no more than 10 high-level warriors, and some of them even had only 1. There were only 6 Heaven Realm masters in total in Heavenly Knight's sect. He had thought that the other party would leave 1 or 2 powerful cultivators behind to guard their sect. To his surprise, after Zhang Han arrived at Capricemo sect, he sensed only 5 Earth Real cultivators with his soul sense. Everyone in Capricemo sect. Zhang Wengyu's voice echoed in Capricemo sect. Before he could finish speaking, Hand of Earth killing intent. King Ming seal. Heavenly Star Strike. Zhang Guangyu was stunned again. Dozens of seconds later, less than 10 people of the whole Capricemo sect escaped, leaving only ruins. Zhang Guangyu was astonished. Let's go and get the trophies. Zhang Han withdrew his indifferent chi and smiled at Zhang Guangyu, which gave his father the feeling that he had changed from an immortal overlooking all living beings to a spring breeze. Zhang Guangyu was a little dizzy and went to the treasure house. All the treasures had nowhere to hide in front of Zhang Han. After hollowing out the treasure tower, they flew into the air again. Son, I finally know how the nicknamed Merciless Zhang came from. Are you influenced by the martial arts heritage of predecessors? Although I don't feel your murderous spirit, it seems that you are a little merciless, Zhang Guangyu said with a bitter smile. Why should I spare our enemies' lives? Zhang Han shook his head slightly and sighed. Dad, you are too soft-hearted. Soft-hearted? Zhang Guangyu was stunned. How can I be soft-hearted? It should be called a hero's style, right? If you are upright, you won't feel guilty about others and yourself. It's also a way to punish evil and promote good. So we are punishing evil. Zhang Han said with a smile. What is a hero? Take punishing the evil and promoting the good for example. Sometimes, there is no clear distinction between right and wrong, gratitude and resentment. Being honest to oneself is the right way, but it doesn't mean one can't kill someone else. I have heard that since a warrior enters their martial arts world, they must be prepared for fighting to death. This is only for martial artists. As an immortal, the boundary between good and evil is really different, and we have to abide by our own principles. It is right to follow the original intention, and there is no saying of punishing the evil and promoting the good. Some people have done both good and bad things in their lives. It's hard to distinguish good from evil. Zhang Guangyu was stunned for a few seconds. He looked at Zhang Han strangely and said, I can't refute you, but I don't think it's right. Ha ha ha, don't think about it. They can't live if you do evil. Since they went to attack Heavenly Knight's sect, they have to prepare for the price of failure. Zhang Han sneered. What's more, if I go back one day late, Meng will not be happy. Who will pay for my time? Well, you're right. Zhang Guangyu shook his head. Next, Limitless sect. They are stronger than Capricemo sect. Half an hour later, Limitless sect was reduced to ruins, along with 1 cultivator at Earth Peak stage, 2 at Earth Realm middle stage and 6 at Earth Realm early stage. Zhang Han and his father got 350 pieces of medium-grade crystals, 13,000 pieces of low-grade crystals, 6 divine objects, and 13 holy objects. It's too easy to make money. Zhang Guangyu was stunned for a while and then said, "Where is the next destination? The disciples that escaped are slow and will need time to reach the Cultivation World. We will go to the northeast first and finish the sweeping. It is estimated that they will arrive at the gate of Cultivation World when we are going to the southwest, and they will be late for any reaction." After pondering for a while, Zhang Han said, "Wind Snow School has sects in 5 realms. Let's sweep the 4 realms, and it will be painful enough for them. Wind Snow School has spent decades connecting the 5 realms. Now, we have wiped out the 4 realms. This is a Herculean feat." Zhang Wengyu's eyes were bright, and he felt great. At this time, he forgot that he had not participated in the battles. Upon seeing his smile, Zhang Han also revealed a smile. The happiness of his family was his simple happiness, and also what he wanted to protect. Mystical martial world in the northeast. At the entrance of the ancient mine. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A line of more than a dozen figures quickly flew out, most of them blood-stained. There was a beautiful figure with a pale face. The middle-aged man beside her looked at her and said with a smile, "Lanlan, your blood training is enough this time. When we return to the Holy Land, you can break through to the God Realm medium stage." The middle-aged man spoke with pride, but the woman shook her body. "Oh, I said, don't call me Lanlan." The woman was Jiang Yanlan. The first thing she returned to do was to refine her blood in the ancient mine. Now, she was ready to break through. Her father heard her words and laughed several times before he said, "Okay, okay, it's up to you. My daughter doesn't like her nickname, it's so sad." "No." Jiang Yanlan bit her lip. "I will think of Anshul as soon as hear this name." Boom. The middle-aged man's chi surged and his eyes narrowed. "Someone bullied you? Who the hell is that? Dad will go to kill him." "No." Jiang Yanlan was depressed. "Just a friend, male or female?" The middle-aged man was alert. "Male." Boom. He got angrier. "Who is he?" He was going to explode. More than a dozen people around were all confused. This seems to be the first time our young madam has said that she has a boyfriend. Oh no, a male friend. Boom. Before they could understand, a real roar came from a distance. Huh? Everyone was stunned and their faces became dignified. Is that the direction of Wind Snow School? Is there a fierce war that generated such a big fluctuation? The middle-aged man pondered, waved his hand, and took the lead in flying towards that direction. "Let's go and have a look." In about 20 minutes, they arrived. What they saw, however, was astonishing. What? Wind Snow School has been destroyed? My God, who did it? Who are those 2 figures that just flew out? How strong are they to destroy the sect? The subsect of Wind Snow School in the mystical martial world has been destroyed? I'm afraid that there will be a big earthquake in the martial arts world. Jiang Yanlan's father frowned. The 2 seem to be flying south? Yes, they are flying south. South. All of a sudden there was silence, and then there were a few roars. Isn't south the direction of our sect? Go, go, go back.